corner. He could and should at least move up to the front row with this one, over the line, yes! And he goes fastest.
17.529.
I was very happy with the balance of the car, so after the first run I said just put another set of tyres and let's go, and thankfully it was just starting to spit, but I was able to get a clean lap.
It's race day at the legendary Nürburgring in the Eifel Mountains of Western Germany. You get all sorts of weather around here. It's a cool 10 degrees. It is threatening to rain for the European Grand Prix. Hello there, welcome to the ITV Trackside Studio. A brilliant vista we have here at the Nürburgring as well. David Coulthard still hurting after that plane crash, but he's stuck his McLaren on pole for the first time in 2 years. And how appropriate that alongside Tony Jardine in the studio, we're joined by Norbert Howard, Mercedes Motorsport Director. Norbert, welcome. High hopes for David this afternoon?
Yes, for sure. I mean, he did a fantastic job. He did not only do a good race in Barcelona, he really handled it very well today and yesterday's practice, and I think even if the circumstances would have been right, let's say that the whole hour could be used for the qualifying, I think he would have had a very good chance to stay on pole. The 1:17.5 he did is a remarkable achievement, I have to say.
Do you detect a new, a more determined David Coulthard, particularly after the plane crash?
I'm not so sure. I think he was just underestimated, not by me, because I knew what the guy is capable to do, and he is a great race driver. He learned a lot, and we're working together in the 5th year right now, and he improved his performance continuously, and I think he even will be better in the future. And let's say he's going to have a couple of race wins, then that would be the major breakthrough, and I think he can do it.
OK, Tony, let's have a check back at that qualifying hour, almost a half hour, really, where it all happened before the rain came here yesterday. And, I mean, Michael Schumacher and Coulthard, there was a real battle going on. Hakkinen was involved as well, but it was all a question of finding that sweet spot in the hour, wasn't it?
There was a sense of urgency to it, and none more than David Coulthard, as we're watching here, and his timing was impeccable. But I just think that because he'd had the accident in the morning, he'd run off on the track there, done some damage, that made him not make any changes to the car. He was quite happy with the car. For once he left it, and off he went. And then out went Schumacher as well, who went about half a second quicker at the time. Well, we thought already there's a ding-dong battle going on. Schumacher wanting to perform at home, of course, he hadn't done that last year.
Mika Häkkinen's not been that happy with his car all weekend. He's never actually been on pole at the European Grand Prix, but we thought he'd done it first inside 1:18, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, the reliability factor, as he says, and Norbert knows, has been working very, very hard on things. A great qualifying driver anyway, a brilliant driver in Häkkinen. But here he had some problems with the brakes in the morning. He did say afterwards, my car is not the same as David's. I'm not 100% happy. He's not normally like that. And down in 3rd place on the grid. Nonetheless, I expect to see fireworks from him in the race.
And then, almost within seconds of each other in that session, David Coulthard got his pole position and Michael Schumacher was just fractionally behind him.
Yeah, and I think, well, David Coulthard, of course, when he was saying here, he actually purposely kept off the curbs. He said, perhaps I lost a few tenths of a second here. He went round, and this is great because I unlike Norbert, I think he is a bit stronger. I think he is a bit ruder. He is ignoring a lot of the interviews. He is more determined than ever. Right after this, Michael Schumacher went out, and he couldn't better lap. And again, this thing that we see every now and again, despite Schumacher's brilliance, he makes the odd mistake. He made 2 mistakes down at the Dunlop curve twice, where he outbraked himself. And he's using this development engine, which they're now going to use in the race, which Jean Todt said originally they weren't going to use. So we'll see what happens with that engine. OK, Michael Schumacher, the quickest in warm-up this morning. Right, let's hear from some of the drivers, shall we? Starting with a rather downbeat world champion.
My car just wasn't right. It just was not performing as it should have performed. And I was not able to maximize or to get the best lap time.
Well, feeling comfortable. Second position is a very good start base for the race, and we have to get right the start, the strategy for the race, and the rest will happen.
I feel good. No one's won from pole this year, but I hope I can be the first.
So the grid, Tony.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the first pole for Coulthard since '98 in Canada. Schumacher not that happy, but he says get the strategy right from the front row of the grid. Hakkinen, as we know, not 100% happy. Barrichello 23 points behind. Will he now have to kowtow behind Michael Schumacher? Ralph, a great job there, and competition for Norbert and BMW and a few of the workers here. Truly, second here last year, heading for the podium, he hopes. Fisichella lost a wheel this morning, very embarrassing. Irvine quite close to his best. He was 6th at San Marino. Not bad for Jaguar there. Villeneuve affected by the traffic, so was Frentzen and the rain, having that last dash towards the end of the qualifying session. And Button, well, he was affected. He crashed. He missed one whole session. Sir Frank Williams said we expected more pressure on Button there. De La Rosa equaling his best from Australia. Verstappen, engine change. Wirtz, Pat Simmons, technical director, is in charge of his car, making no difference. Deniz, Herbert confused from the morning until the afternoon. He doesn't know why he didn't go quicker. Problems for him there in Jaguar. And then we've got Alesi, who spun across the pit lane entrance, Zonta, of course, and then we have the Minardis towards the back, Genet, Salo, lackluster, and there's Mazzacane. And poor Nick Heidfeld, unfortunately not able to race in his home Grand Prix, disqualified for being underweight. Man who's come through McLaren and Mercedes school with Norbert and his boys. A great shame for him. 3 German drivers instead of 4 in this race.
That's tough for Heidfeld, isn't it, Norbert? But all of a sudden there are loads of German drivers in Formula One.
Yeah, well, I think that has something to do with the first of all Formula 3 series in Germany, which is very strong. It was created when we used to have the DTM. There was a lot of focus on it, and that's what we're going to have in the future again. DTM in together with Formula 3. We will have 33 cars, by the way, in this season. So we're going to have a strong series there, and the young guys, they just performed very well. Then, as you all know, they went in the junior school in Mercedes-Benz.
Sure.
Like Michael and Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Nick did. For Nick, this was again a character-building weekend, I would say. I mean, he did an outstanding performance. It was very long time, 6th, 7th, and then at the end I think he was 11th or 12th or whatever.
Like that, when he's...
And then, well, got disqualified because of underweight, and I think it was just a kilo or so. And this is really tough. But I think if you learn at the beginning of your career that things like that can happen, it makes you even stronger. And I think Nick is a guy who can cope with it.
OK, Norbert, thank you very much. And Tony, we're following Barcelona here. We always go to Barcelona and fear the worst a bit, don't we? But we had all sorts of incidents, particularly this stuff in the pits.
It was a tremendous race. Michael Schumacher leading at this point, coming into the first pit stop. Now, Nigel Stepney there, the refueler and chief mechanic, he took over that job in '95 after a big pit stop went wrong for Berger. This went wrong. The lollipop man came up too quickly. 2 levers. The second man, Andrea Vicari, went in behind to pull the second lever. The lollipop man went as he immediately went to pull off the hose. He'd gone too soon. Stepney had broken his ankle, but the equipment had been damaged when it was wrenched off. So Vicari takes over, second pit stop. He's still in the lead at this point, quite critical, can't get the hose square on, loses about 10, 12 seconds, and of course loses the race in this particular incident. At the same time, could it damage, could fuel leak? We say it shouldn't. OK, Michael Schumacher, he's got a slow puncture from a damaged bead on the rim, but look at this, the 2 Schumachers together. Very angry at the time afterwards, Ralph. He said it made no sense what he's doing, actually touching side pods, letting Barrichello go through there. So excited, not true. Look at from Barrichello's view, as the 2 brothers are squabbling, and of course afterwards there was a contretemps, but now there's nothing in it. Now this is a tactical block from Michael Schumacher when he was defending that second place. David Coulthard brilliantly shadowed him, 180 miles per hour, goes around the outside for a second time. He did it Barrichello. Now this is the ever-improving McLaren Mercedes, now winning the second 1-2 on the trot. 14 points they have reduced that gap to. Tremendous performance. Hacken very pleased with it, and he said this could be the turning point, and let's hope it was. It's a very exciting championship we've got on our hands now.
Absolutely, thank you, Tony. Once again, then we've seen the importance of that pit crew and just how dangerous the job can be, particularly when the pressure is on. Watch carefully now with James Allen.
Formula One drivers are used to pressure, but more and more the pit crews are finding that they decide the result of a race. For the mechanics, a pit stop is exciting, difficult, and very, very risky.
It takes just 3 or 4 seconds to change the wheels. The really time-consuming bit is putting the fuel in, whether it be a 6-second splash and dash or 11 seconds width, which is enough for half the race. Now, the man who controls the pit stop is the lollipop man. He has to look out, make sure all the wheels are back on the car, and most importantly, the refueler is off before he's happy to let the car go.
Sometimes it all goes horribly wrong, as in Spain 2 weeks ago.
Schumacher in, leading the race. This pit stop is going to be absolutely crucial. In goes the hose, down goes the lollipop. New wheels and tyres on. Lollipop off, and oh, the hose was still in.
The lollipop man thinks he sees the refueler pull off. He releases Schumacher. Too late, he realises his mistake, and the refueler breaks his ankle. So let's take you down to the pit lane and show you why it's such a risky business.
As you can see, there are 2 of us doing this because it's so heavy, about 30 or 40 kilos when there's fuel in it. You put it on, I've not even got it lined up when it's stationary. Push down the black handle, there's a flow meter here, number of seconds going in of fuel. When you're happy, enough fuel in, you pull this handle back, get hold of this one and pull it away. Easy enough when it's stationary, but much more difficult when it's moving.
And more difficult still when you're wearing cumbersome fireproof gear, helmets and breathing apparatus.
This helmet on, it's much more difficult to see what you're doing. The car comes in, I've got my mark, I put this thing up, it's on now, the fuel is flowing, 3, 4, 5 seconds and it turns you passing away, but pull back, pull away and he goes.
Ferrari's accident has been a wake-up call for all of the teams in the pit lane.
You do get complacent with pit stops when they come and go, and it takes something like that, and everyone's watched it a couple of times on the television, it takes something like that to actually re-emphasize how dangerous this whole thing is.
Even when you're practicing, standing in front of a car travelling at 50 miles an hour is not for the faint-hearted. It's all about routine and practice, and when that routine is broken, you have to replace the #1 refueler, as Ferrari did. The pressure is really on. Beccari has gone back to his old job, and Pietro Timpini will do the refueling. He's been practicing all week, but how will he do this afternoon when the pressure is really on?
I mean, if we had a weakness, it's that we hadn't practiced enough before we had the problem with Barcelona. We have a backup crew for everything, but we've been probably a little bit stretched at the beginning of the season, and we hadn't done enough practice, so we exposed ourselves when Nigel was hurt.
Whoever does the job is going to be under a lot more pressure than he appreciates. It is singularly the most difficult task in the pit stop.
Yeah, half a second in the pits is the race, so there is a lot of pressure on the guys to perform, as much pressure perhaps as a driver. So and of course you've got 15 or 20 guys involved in the whole process, and one slight misjudgment by any of them can cost you the race.
Last year at this race, Ferrari had a bit of a miscount.
Well, this is ludicrous. This is now they're going to have a committee meeting about it. Stick it on and send him out.
While at Silverstone last year, a troublesome wheel nut lost Hakkinen a certain win and 10 points. But with overtaking on the track so difficult now, places are often changing in the pit lane. The best feeling of all for a pit crew is when your handiwork means that your man nicks a place off his rival.
Who's going to get away first? The Ferrari should be easily away first, and it is. Oh, that is so close. Well done. Amazing stop there from the McLaren boys.
Watch out for more of the same here this afternoon.
And our thanks to PAR for all their help in making that feature. Are the teams, the pit crews, a little bit more apprehensive, a bit more worried now after what happened in Barcelona?
Well, you certainly have to know that it is dangerous, and you know, this is everything has to work together in the right, precise moment. Otherwise, it's dangerous. But our guys practice a lot, but you never know. I mean, there is a certain risk, definitely, but we just hope that that we can handle it. And I think our guys did a great job this year. And the last exam was fantastic. I think that's how it should be.
Okay, thanks, Norbert. You'd have heard the cars out half an hour ago to the start of the European Grand Prix. Let's just sample a lap, shall we, of the Nürburgring in Western Germany. We are around about 50 miles or so from Cologne, 3 miles each lap. That first corner so tricky. Remember Deniz flipping over last year. Here's Martin Brundle. It's Rubens Barrichello at the wheel of the Ferrari. Thanks, Martin. Okay then, Norbert, you know this place very well indeed. We can't work it out. We don't know what the heck's going on with the weather here. What do you think is going to happen this afternoon?
Well, I think nobody knows. You know, you can know this place as long as you like. You cannot predict the weather at the Nürburgring. In a moment it's dry, but I'm sure there are going to be some surprises this afternoon. And even if you are born here, you know, the Eifel keeps surprising you, definitely.
Yeah. We've had a forecast. It says storms and high winds. How do you react to that?
It's normal.
Yeah.
No, but wait and see. I mean, it depends. You need a little bit of luck. You need to be at the right place at the right time. And I think we are quite strong. And I have to say, McLaren.
You're on a roll at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, they are, absolutely. And they're doing a great job. You know, everybody thought we are under pressure, but this is a great team. And no matter what happens today, we're going to be strong during the course of the season. I do not know whether we can be world champion again, but we certainly are going for it. And, well, we are quite relaxed on it.
Thanks very much indeed for joining us today, Norbert.
Okay.
We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, then, well, there it is. Bit of rain for you, Norbert, before you go away. You can see it is all around here at the Nürburgring, and it rained about 3/4 of an hour ago pretty hard, and it looks as though we are into more of the same. Well, just looking back at last year's European Grand Prix, the form book was thrown right out of the window. The weather has always played a part. A British winner emerged from 14th on the grid.
Yes, nice one, Frentzen. Oh, somebody's over. He's a lucky bunny. Umbrellas up. Here comes the rain.
There's no tyre here.
I've never seen anything like it. Frentzen stops on turn 3 and Eddie Jordan is gutted. Oh no, Coulthard off the road. David Coulthard has gone off. Wow, my God, this is unbelievable. And off goes Schumacher. He's got a puncture, right rear puncture. Johnny Herbert leads the European Grand Prix. This is Manoa out of the race. It's 4th place, of course, he's just lost. So 3 World Championship points and what would have been a stunning 4th place in a Minardi. Johnny Herbert in the Stewart turns into corner 13 and takes the checkered flag to win. Oh, words fail me.
Well, for Stewart, Reed Jaguar, and the big cat has whimpered so far in Formula One. We'll be asking why. There's a revealing interview as well with the '97 world champion, Jacques Villeneuve. All for the first time in a couple of years, Nick Heidfeld The young German should have started his home Grand Prix in 13th place. His Prost, though, has been excluded for running underweight. In the 5th, the Martin Brundle's Inside Track Series, Martin has weighty matters on his mind.
This week we're talking about weight. Now, Article 4 of the regulation says the total car must weigh more than 600 kilograms, so that's easy then. Actually, in true Formula One style, it's not at all easy, because that weight must include the drivers. Of course, when the car comes in for qualifying, the driver is sitting in the car and it's easy to weigh. But after the race, for example, the driver is long gone. So the FIA must know the weight of all the drivers, and the teams must check, especially for qualifying, where they're very, very close to the limit, the weight of their driver each day. The minimum weight limit was originally to make sure the cars were sturdy enough, but that's now been superseded by crash tests to make sure that the driver is safe. So now it's an equalisation process. The lighter drivers are 60 kilos, the heaviest are 85, and those heavier drivers would be penalised by up to a second per lap. But the teams are smart. They now build the cars up to 80 kilos underweight and then use ballast, moving it around the car, lowering the centre of gravity and tuning it. You'd be amazed what a difference just 5 kilos moved from the front to the rear makes to the handling. But Article 4.2 says that this lead must be sealable by the FIA for later checking and must need tools to remove it. It must be solidly fixed. Can you imagine something like this flying around in a big accident? But there's a twist. 4.3 says you can't add anything during the race with the exception of fuel, nitrogen and compressed air. But I'll let you into a little secret. The drivers are also told on the in-lap, the slowing down lap after the race, to go offline and pick up all the debris, discarded rubber that they can on the tyres. That can add over a kilo to the weight and could prevent you from being thrown out of the race. Weight is king in Formula One.
Thanks, Martin. Eddie Irvine, 8th on the grid as Jaguar search for their first point. As Stewarts, they had their finest hour here last time round. Louise Goodman reporting.
It was the crowning moment in Stewart's brief history. The team scored not just a maiden victory, but almost 40% of its 99 points tally at the Nürburgring. 8 months later, it's a different story. Stewart's out, Jaguar's in, and the scoreboard's reading 0.
We had bonuses last year, and we have to look at them as bonuses and not reality. We had a quick little car, it was okay, and at the end of the season, Johnny and Rubens were both up there with it. But it's a whole package. You know, generally, I don't believe we've done as good a job as a team as the other people have done as a team, even though we still have moved forward a bit.
I think we were lucky that we had a good car, but everybody obviously has caught up and actually probably done a bigger jump than we have. I think we have a better car than we had last year, but I think other people have better cars, a lot better cars than they had last year. And of course, as you can see from the grids, it's so close, and 2 tenths can make a big difference on the grid.
Jackie's resignation created a void at the helm, and it suggested that the team suffered a lack of direction in the changeover from Stewart to Jaguar.
It wasn't really a lack of direction so much. It was just really a lack through the winter of really knowing what we were doing. You know, there was times you felt you were actually going, just a racing team going racing, and you couldn't quite get your hands on why you were doing it. You know, there was a company owned you that you never saw, and it made it quite difficult just to get decisions made. That was the basic thing.
I think everything's being done that could be done at the minute, but it's not enough, and all our guys know it's not enough, but they can't do any more. It's a very small team, very limited resources, very small infrastructure, you know. This team is a long way from being where it needs to be. They know that, and that's what we're, you know, all the processes are happening at the minute, but it's going to take time.
The man charged with turning things round is Neil Ressler. He's a new face in F1, but comes highly recommended. He was Ford's chief technical officer.
To compete against the big teams, I think you need someone's vision like Neil's who can look at the future and see what needs to be changed to make it a big concern, to make it a more competitive package.
He's not used to the dog-eat-dog world of Formula One, I think, but he'll learn that quick enough because he's not stupid. I honestly, so far, I've been very impressed with him. And just because you put him in the top dog seat doesn't mean to say everything's going to change tomorrow. But he's taking things on board, and things are going to change, but it's going to take time. I would say, in 6 years, 7 years' time, there's going to be no team better than this team.
Eddie Irvine needing a good start to score today. Well, over the past couple of race weekends, we've seen a fascinating interview with Michael Schumacher. Now another former world champion pulls no punches with Martin Brundle. Yeah, it's Jacques Villeneuve, winner here in '96, world champion a year later, but now struggling to push his BIR to the front.
Jacques, thanks for talking to us.
It's a pleasure.
So let's cut straight to the chase. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, but are you a teeny-weeny bit disappointed in your move to BAR?
I'm disappointed with the results. I have no regrets. I've learned a lot. It's been a great experience. It's been a hard experience, but I think I've improved as a driver, so it's going to be useful in the future. So no, I've no bad feelings. Of course, there were some promises that were made before I joined the team that weren't kept because, well, results or the car was supposed to be a lot more performant than it was last year, but the starting point was a lot lower than it was supposed to be. So that's the annoying bit. But at least it's been improving. People have been working hard, and it's started to pay off.
I know what it's like as a driver. You need a crystal ball. You're looking at a team. You're trying to work out how competitive it will be in months' time, or even a few years' time. What criteria do you look for?
You want to believe that you can win. You want to believe that, first of all, that the team is behind you, and that your life within the team will be easy. That's very important. Then, of course, there's all the media aspect, how much work you'll have to do for the team outside of the car, and how much you'll get paid, I guess. That's all part of everything you look at. It's fine. You have to decide you want to be driving and winning every race and drive for free, or do something in between, or the best thing is to be in the best team and be paid the most. But I guess Michael got that when he went to Ferrari, but it took them a long time to get there. And now they have a winning car, so it's the same thing we want to do here, you know, take time to build it.
But rumour has it you are a fundamental part of this team. You have a different relationship with this team than a driver normally has.
Well, I'm very close to Craig, of course. So that has an effect. And the other thing is the team was started from scratch on a blank sheet of paper. So in a way built around me. So that's got some kind of big involvement, and that was also very important to my decision in coming here.
What about the future? How and when will you decide? And can you really walk away from a Works Honda deal?
The Honda element in the team is very important, and that would make it more difficult to leave the team, definitely, to have worked with them only for 1 year without having seen yet all the good things they can do. So it would be very, very, very difficult, but at the same time you have to look at what's best for you. And if it doesn't look like the team is going to produce soon, then it would be important to look elsewhere. Then it also depends, maybe the team doesn't want to keep me that much either, who knows, maybe they don't want to keep me enough.
Do you think you'll be wearing this team gear next year?
No idea. I don't know if I'm going to be here, and I don't know if they're going to keep the same colors.
Nice.
Tough to get the truth behind that beard, isn't it, Tony? Where do you think he'll be driving next year?
Well, if I had to put my money on it now, I'd say he wouldn't be there, because after 2 years of mixed results, poor results, he says that's unacceptable. He's dying to get back. He wants to win the World Championship again. He's been talking about beating Michael Schumacher. There's lots of hope at BAR with Honda and the chassis, but can he wait that long? I'm not sure. Renault's on the horizon, and I think the McLaren door is closing, so who knows?
Well, always expect the unexpected at this place. Can David Coulthard become the first pole sitter to win for 10 races? How about Michael Schumacher? Is he going to deliver for his massive Schumi army? Don't discount brother Ralph, he's due a win. Can Hakkinen continue that McLaren surge? Will there be another ring upset with last year's winner Herbert, or even Jenson Button? All will be revealed. It's the European Grand Prix at Germany's Nürburgring. Whatever you do, don't miss the start and the 180-mile-an-hour dash to the first corner, the Castrol S. Rain and high winds are forecast within 20 minutes. Excitement guaranteed. Let's join Martin Brundle and Murray Walker.
Thank you, Jim. Well, you can see this wonderful Eiffel Mountains countryside spread out there. We're within sight of the fabulous old Nordschleife, the original Nürburgring, which was so revered by drivers like the great Juan Manuel Fangio, Tazio Nuvolari, Rudolf Caracciola, Achille Varzi, and many, many others. And now there's one of their German successors, Michael Schumacher's brother, Ralf. There's Michael himself. Second position on the grid, not entirely happy with it yesterday, but he made a brave show of it, saying I'm on the front row of the grid. But I said yesterday during qualifying what a wonderful thing it would be for David Coulthard, who has had such a terrible time recently, for McLaren, for Mercedes-Benz, for Britain and for Germany, if David got that pole position. Well, he did exactly that, the 9th of his career, the first of the year. He's been driving magnificently. After all, he has had 2 second places this year. He lost one of them through no fault of his own, through a problem with the car when it was checked. But he's also won the British Grand Prix, and he's well up in the World Championship, just 2 points behind his teammate Mika Häkkinen and 16 points behind Michael Schumacher. So David Coulthard is very much in the running from pole position for another win here to improve his World Championship position. But that's one of the men who's going to be trying to stop him, Mika Häkkinen, and of course not only Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari, but Barrichello, Rubens Barrichello in the second Ferrari. The front row of the grid, the 4 fastest drivers, the 4 best cars, 2 Ferraris, 2 McLarens, but let me mark your card straight away. 2 men to watch particularly at the start. Ralf Schumacher, who is in 5th position on the grid in the Williams BMW, behind Mika Häkkinen, and Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR. You've just been hearing from Martin and from Villeneuve himself. They're both demon starters. We've seen a lot of that this year, and we could be seeing it again here.
I think tactics are everything this afternoon, Murray. I think that we could well see 2 Ferraris that are going to be very active in the early part of this race. I think there could be completely different strategies between McLaren and Ferrari in how they're going to run this, how they're going to try and anticipate the weather. So we could see quite a strange first few laps, I think, as they shape up. Coulthard's fine, bit of adrenaline running through those cracked ribs, he'll be all right. And Häkkinen certainly seemed on a mission in this morning's warm-up. I don't think Michael Schumacher really was that disappointed with second on the grid. He's on the harder tyre, suits his driving style, suits the balance he wanted in the car, and we know them to be about 2 to 3 tenths slower on one flying lap than the softer tyre. So I think he felt that front row of the grid was probably just fine. So Michael is right. They've been changing the wings, the downforce settings down on the grid. They're relying a lot this afternoon on their weather forecasters, and I think they've taken positions that could be quite significantly different as to how they want to run this race.
I agree with that entirely, because only 4 drivers are on the harder compound Bridgestone tyre. They've got a super soft tyre here for the first time this year, and the soft tyre, which is actually the harder one here today, is being used by both the Ferrari drivers, Barrichello and Michael Schumacher, by Jacques Villeneuve and by Jos Verstappen. And I certainly know in the case of the Ferraris that, as Martin has said, it's because they just get a better balance on the car. They tend to go off after about 10 laps, so Michael Schumacher will be looking to get ahead as soon as this race begins. But in order to do that, he's got to pass David Coulthard.
Yes, Michael Schumacher there, look, with a virtually brand new set of tyres. We saw, as you were talking there, they ran it. Is that Coulthard's front left? Yeah, it looks like it's ready to be thrown away before he even starts the race. Now, that's because of the groove tyres. Some of the teams are finding that the further they run, the better the tyres, particularly as the track must surely be a little bit damp. One problem Coulthard's got, I was just looking at it, is just in front of him, Michael Schumacher is charging away there, but David Coulthard has got two black patches. You saw them briefly that have been painted out. It's quite a shiny paint on top of it, and I think it's a little bit unfair for those on the front of the grid. Actually, they've got to go over that whilst they're still trying to control the wheel spin. But nonetheless, at least he's on the grippy side of the track. His teammate behind him. I saw the pair of them having a good chat, although they both got their helmets on at the time, before they finally jumped in their cars. And I think they know they've got to do a little bit of team riding before they can sort themselves out mid-race.
So, as ever, the start is going to be absolutely vital. It's comparatively smooth, this track, not as much tyre wear as there is at a lot of them. I'm expecting most of them to make just one stop. Some of them may be making two. And that is the slowest corner on the course that we're looking down on now, the Dunlop curve. But it bears repeating again that the weather, you can see that heavy rain cloud above you on the left, or we're moving away from it now. But there are clouds all the time over the Nürburgring. It's just like the Spa circuit in Belgium. Weather is totally unpredictable. It can be dry, bright, blue skies 1 minute, and heavy cloud and pouring rain the next. And that's what we expect this afternoon, with an 80% certainty of rain.
It's one thing the drivers have got to remember, and it's always difficult to come into the pits, especially if you're at the sharp end of a race. And it takes about a half a minute, really, to come in, get new tyres and go. But if you're, say, taking 3 laps on the wrong tyres, it's very easy to lose more than 30 seconds or even fall off the road in a silly accident into the gravel trap. So you really have to have the strength of mind to say, right, I'm going to go in. I know I should be on different tyres. Even if I'm going to use them for 5 or 7 laps, it's better to use them than lose that extra time. But the other situation is, when you're doing, I don't know, trolling along at 150 miles an hour, the little sprinkling of rain that's out there at the moment, we feel, walking around, is streaming off of your visor, and it's very difficult to judge just how much rain is coming down until there's standing water.
So, out of the Vidal chicane, out of turn 13, the last on the circuit, which, by the way, is a 2.8-mile lap. David Coulthard in pole position for the first time this year, for the 9th time in his career. There's his chief rival, Michael Schumacher. Behind David Coulthard, there is Mika Häkkinen. Behind Mika Häkkinen, the man I told you to watch. Look on the right, the 3rd car back, Ralf Schumacher. Watch the lights then when the 5th, when they're all on, they'll go out, there'll be a pause, and the race will be go! Good one by David Coulthard and Mika Häkkinen. Streaks between the two of them. Is that what they were talking about? Is that what they were talking about? And Rubens Barrichello challenging. So Michael Schumacher in 2nd position between the two McLarens, and then Barrichello, off goes one of the Jordans, and somebody is trailing along at the back. It is Marc Genet in the Minardi, who's had a very late start. But unlike last year when Pedro Diniz went off, and that is Trulli, Jarno Trulli, who was starting about in 8th position, and it looks as though he's out of the race already. So it's McLaren Ferrari, and then behind you can see them as we ride with Heinz Harald Frentzen now, and they're climbing up out of the Dunlop curve up towards the left and right at turns 8 and 9, up to the big curve, the sweeping right-hander, that is turn 10, and now then the Vidal chicane. So they're pretty well spread out as they come towards us now, with Mika Häkkinen leading Schumacher, with David Coulthard down from 1st on the grid to 3rd in the race. Rubens Barrichello started 4th. He is still in 4th position, but in 5th position it is Jacques Villeneuve. Remember what I told you? He has already gained 4 places, a magnificent start.
Yes, great start from Villeneuve. The car that rocketed away was Mika Häkkinen. I was watching them, they're right outside our window for the start, and Coulthard got away well. Michael Schumacher not so well, but then Coulthard lost a bit of ground on the upshift to 2nd. Häkkinen just catapulted through. I'm sure we'll see a replay at some time from the German producer here, but I really would like to see that again. But I'm absolutely sure now that the first 4 cars on the track have got completely different fuel loads.
Yeah, and this morning Mika Häkkinen was 9/1000ths of a second slower than Michael Schumacher's Ferrari. That's how closely matched these cars are. Now we are on lap 2 out of 67 laps is this race, and Jean Lacey is in 14th position, the man we're riding with, chasing Jenson Button in the Williams as Villeneuve goes through. Behind Villeneuve is Ralph Schumacher, who has been passed by the Canadian. Fisichella is in 7th place. Eddie Irvine is in 8th position in the Jaguar. So this start, and Michael Schumacher is now really challenging Mika Häkkinen.
Yes, Michael Schumacher designed that corner when they changed this circuit. He loves that kind. We've seen him win races by overtaking into that Vidal chicane. It just suits his attacking driving style completely. So Michael will be shaping up there whenever he gets half a chance to have a look down the inside of Häkkinen.
And he's the fastest man on the track. 1 minute 22.6. Michael Schumacher has just gone round in 1.4 seconds than the fastest lap last year, which was done by Mika Häkkinen. And Ralph Schumacher is hanging on behind Jacques Villeneuve. Here they come behind us. There's Villeneuve, Schumacher, Fisichella, but Michael Schumacher is now on a charge. Here is the proof as they come up towards us.
Yes, Jenson Button having a bad start, now dropping down another place on that last lap, down to 14th. Johnny Herbert down in 18th and running last but 2. Here's a replay of the start. There's the wheel spin. I can see black lines outside my window off the grid. Here we go now. And Häkkinen just got the absolutely perfect start from 3rd on the grid. The others are away reasonably well. Look, and just rockets through the middle. We've heard that Frenton has blown up somewhere around the racetrack as we're watching this replay. And look at that, the perfect getaway from Häkkinen. How he and Michael Schumacher didn't touch, I'll never know. And then Coulthard having to defend what became 1st down to 3rd from Barrichello.
Well, let's repeat the fact as you watch the Sauber of Pedro Diniz go off the track. And here is Frenton retiring, and his teammate Jarno Trulli is already out of the race. Well, you can see what the problem is there. His Mugen Honda engine has obviously had enough already. So both Jordans are out of the race, and we're only on lap 4 now as Frenton waves to his countryman, and Häkkinen comes towards us. Schumacher 2nd, Coulthard 3rd, and look at the way that Michael Schumacher is pushing the McLaren in front of him. And I remind you, Michael Schumacher is on the harder tyre. Mika Häkkinen's got a beautiful balance on the softer Bridgestone, and he's definitely got the advantage at the present moment, notwithstanding the fact that Michael Schumacher has made the fastest lap. In 7th position behind Ralph Schumacher, it's Fisichella. 8th is Eddie Irvine. 9th is De La Rosa in the Arrows. Verstappen is 10th in the second Arrows, and Schumacher is continuing to harry, push, get his front wing right under the rear wing of Mika Häkkinen's McLaren as they storm round this track. Now, the record lap here is held by Heinz-Harald Frentzen, just a whisker under 130 miles an hour in the Williams in 1997. Different specification then. The cars were faster, very little in it now, and Schumacher is continuing to push. We're on lap 4 already.
Yeah, Schumacher's got the faster car, and I'm sure his game plan did not include Mika Häkkinen rocketing off of 3rd place on the grid, because I think now, if we're right about the fuel load on this Ferrari, Michael Schumacher really expected and needed to be zooming off into the distance. A man probably quite content at the moment is Coulthard back there in 3rd place, if he's running a lot of fuel. And I think it's a smart idea this afternoon. You need as big a window as possible to give you the best chance of needing to come in for fuel when it starts to rain. So you need it's worth carrying a bit more fuel to widen that window, if you understand me.
And did you hear what Martin said? Not if it starts to rain, when it starts to rain, because we're virtually certain that it's going to do so. And the teams have been frantically revising their strategies to take account of that. Now, Mika Häkkinen will be quite happy. I think he's got a good balance on the softer tyres. He's leading the race. He can take his line wherever he likes. And Schumacher's got to make him make a mistake before he can get past. And Mika Häkkinen twice a world champion is not going to do that.
Well, that's two camera angles where I've seen spots of rain on the lens, so for sure it's getting a little bit damper. Looking out of the window, no signs of umbrellas out here with the crowd at the moment, but Michael Schumacher appears to have a much better handling car at this stage of the race.
The first two are stretching away slightly from the second two. Hakkinen leads Schumacher, there they are, and David Coulthard is 2 seconds behind them with Rubens Barrichello tucked under his wing. Jacques Villeneuve is 6 seconds behind Barrichello. Fisichella is right behind Villeneuve in 6th position. Ralf Schumacher is 11 seconds behind the leader in 7th place in the Williams. Then it's De La Rosa. And hello, what's happening here? Off goes the Sauber again. And this time, again, it is Pedro Diniz. He does not like this circuit. It treated him very badly at the start last year. He's been off twice already. But after last year, he's a very lucky man to be alive. And we've got news from Louise Goodman.
Yeah, I'm standing here with Jarno Trulli. Jarno, we saw your teammate go out with an engine failure. What happened to you?
I'm really disappointed because I had a very good start. I was trying to overtake Ralph on the straight, and suddenly I had a hit from the back, and probably physically I lost the control of the car and just didn't lift off, and it just hit me on the back, so the car was damaged and I had to retire. It's a shame because I had a good start, and I can't believe that we did that.
Difficult day for the team, bad luck, Jarno.
Well, Jarno Trulli was 6th on the grid, Fisichella was 7th on the grid. There have been quite a lot of complaints yesterday in practicing about people holding other people up, but very, very bad luck for Jarno Trulli as the leaders come through and go into their 7th lap. And now Michael Schumacher is pushing again. He's just had the fastest first sector of all this afternoon. This circuit, like all of them, is split up into 3 sectors. But David Coulthard is now, as Fisichella attacks, Fisichella in the blue Benetton is attacking Jacques Villeneuve. That's what you're looking at now, fighting for 5th position. And behind them, look at the orange arrows of Pedro de la Rosa. He's in 7th position ahead of Ralf Schumacher. The arrows are going magnificently here. They were the fastest cars of all in a straight line in Spain. Jos Verstappen and Pedro de la Rosa. They've been going extremely well here. It's a very, very tidy motor car. It's powered by the Supertech engine. Pedro de la Rosa is now showing, after a full season of Grand Prix racing in his first year last year, that he is a very good driver. He's got a very good car. To prove it, he is in 7th position.
Yes, I don't know what happened to Ralf Schumacher. I think off screen he's had some kind of drama. He's back down in 8th position. So now, as you rightly point out, Murray, it's Fisichella, look, giving Villeneuve a very, very hard time with the 2 arrows, or certainly one of them still there. De La Rosa in 7th, and that car's been going well all through the practices.
It looks as though Mika Hakkinen is going to be able to stave off Michael Schumacher. When are we going to be getting pit stops? Well, if I'm right and they're one stopping, most of them, it'll be round about lap 33, but could be a lot later, depending on fuel load.
Yes, a new fastest lap of the race from Coulthard in 3rd place. So he's clearly finding, as his fuel load goes down, his balance is coming back to where he needs it. Hakkinen and Schumacher level pegged at the front on a 122.3.
Now, I have to say, Martin, I'm a bit disappointed this year in comparison with expectations with Rubens Barrichello. Yes, he was 2nd in Australia, but and he was 3rd in Spain, but he just doesn't seem to have been on it the way that Michael Schumacher has been. We're riding with Barrichello now. He's in 4th position in the Ferrari, and he's 1.5 seconds behind David Coulthard's McLaren, which is the car that you can see ahead of us. And Rubens just does not seem to have been able to get the balance right on the Ferrari. I've got absolutely no doubt that the cars have got equal specification. And there you see Schumacher's Ferrari. You can see that he's still right up with Mika Hakkinen. They're coming through to complete the 8th lap now in this 67-lap race. Hakkinen leads Schumacher. They are 2.2 seconds ahead of David Coulthard, just going over the grid now. Barrichello in the background is 4th. The next man through is Jacques Villeneuve. 6th position is Fisichella. They are still virtually tied together.
Yes, another new fastest lap now, this time Michael Schumacher, but it's very, very close, still a 22.2. So Schumacher edging ever, ever closer to Hakkinen. and really there's not much though. The first four, 22.2, 22.2, 22.4, 22.3, and then they're well over a second a lap quicker than the rest of the field.
Now, it's my belief, as I said earlier on, that these harder tyres start marginally to deteriorate in terms of performance, not in terms of construction, after about 10 laps. Well, Schumacher is still in that second place. We're on lap 9 now, and those softer tyres of Mika Häkkinen are going to start coming in as Schumacher has a look nearly to confound me, but Mika Häkkinen knows he's there. He can see that scarlet blob in his right and left mirrors as the McLaren twists and turns round this Nürburgring.
Well, we've seen Michael Schumacher hounding Häkkinen before, and he has not been able to force him into a mistake. Maybe the Häkkinen of the old days would have, but this Mika Häkkinen, I have to say, is very, very rare. You see him making unforced errors, so Michael is darting around the track, just trying to distract him at any possible opportunity.
133 Grand Prix behind Mika Häkkinen. He's got a lot of experience with Lotus originally. Here is Coulthard third, Barrichello fourth, and Sauber are readying their wheels and tyres for a stop. Now, is it going to be for Mika Salo, who is in 15th position, or Pedro Diniz, who is 19th? And look at De La Rosa in the orange arrows. De La Rosa right up behind Jacques Villeneuve. De La Rosa is 7th, Jacques Villeneuve is 6th, and Fisichella has moved up into 5th position in the Benetton. It's fast and furious behind the two batches of two which are leading this European Grand Prix. Häkkinen, Schumacher is the first batch of two. Coulthard, Barrichello is the second, and then Fisichella, Villeneuve, De La Rosa together.
Yes, I saw Coulthard make a mistake in the first sector of this lap, but there's definitely more rain coming down at the moment. And Barrichello right up the gearbox. He's not in view, but Barrichello, you're watching Häkkinen and Schumacher. Just behind that is Coulthard, just ahead of the sister Ferrari of Michael Schumacher. Rain right behind him, so definitely more rain coming down. And I'm looking to see if Barrichello made any kind of move on Coulthard for third and fourth place.
Now, we had a Formula 3000 race yesterday, absolute mayhem. When the rain came down, this place turned into a skating rink. The asphalt is smooth, and these tyres have got minimal grip when it gets wet, and you've got to have a feather touch on the throttle. 800 horsepower behind each of these drivers, and they're absolutely on the ragged edge of sticking on the circuit when it's dry, never mind when it's wet. And you saw confirmation of what Martin said. Barrichello is right up with Coulthard.
And the Ferrari is definitely working better in these tricky conditions. Both Ferrari drivers able to put, and this is how Fisichella took Villeneuve. Villeneuve couldn't find traction out of the Vidal into the Coca-Cola, the last turn. Fisichella, neat, tidy, smooth, decisive, right up the inside. And as we know now, De La Rosa then starts applying pressure to Villeneuve. James, what can you tell us?
Well, Martin, of course, Michael Schumacher is on the hard of the two tyres, and we saw last year that as the rain falls and you get more and more standing water, they perform much worse than the super soft tyres which Mika Häkkinen has on. So at the moment he's doing well, but as more rain falls, and I can tell you it's falling more and more steadily now. Tremendous atmosphere here.
James, Michael's got a real run on Häkkinen. Häkkinen's going to have to defend his line, otherwise Schumacher's going to outbrake him. Well, you made that too easy there, Mika. You had to defend that. 400 metres, 400 metres earlier. Too easy for Michael Schumacher. No good having a look now.
Well spotted, Martin. Beautiful, beautiful drive by Michael Schumacher, who has to make... Häkkinen gives way. The Ferrari mechanics wave in delight. So now it is Ferrari, McLaren, McLaren, Ferrari, and that yellow and red flag is to indicate that the circuit is getting wet. They'll know that. They'll see these raindrops coming towards them and bouncing on their visors. And now, remember, Michael Schumacher is the absolute rain master of Formula One. One of the greatest drives I've ever seen as we see this replay of Michael Schumacher diving up the inside of Mika Häkkinen, who has to stay out. Tuck in behind the Ferrari as they come into the chicane. And that is where Michael Schumacher brilliantly passed Jean Alesi's Ferrari years ago when Schumacher was with Benetton to win the European Grand Prix, because Schumacher has won this race twice already, 94 and 95.
So you'll see the red and yellow striped flags waving, normally referred to as the oil flags, but actually it's the slippery track flag. And Michael Schumacher, he may have slightly harder compound tyres on, but he is excellent in this kind of situation, second guessing how much grip there's going to be in a corner before you arrive. And now when they're passing over some sections of the track, now this is Barrichello behind Coulthard. Does he have a go up the inside into turn one? This is a replay, but I don't know the outcome. I'm assuming Coulthard on the better line into the corner. No, Barrichello's gone through. Where's Coulthard? We're not showing Barrichello in third place on the computer at the moment. He'll have to go through the next section, so maybe it's Ferrari 1 and 3, McLaren 2 and 4 now.
Well, let's have a look. It is, because Barrichello has passed David Coulthard, and that is a confirmation of the fact that in these weather conditions, the Ferraris have got the better handling. Now, in recent years, there was no doubt about the fact that the McLaren had got the faster car. Ferrari have been working and working and working to improve their car. Let's have a look and see what's happening here on this replay as off spins the arrows of Jos Verstappen. Jos Verstappen, the Dutchman, who was down in 14th position, and that lets Mika Salo in the Sauber through ahead of him.
Look at this, Murray. Michael Schumacher nearly 3 seconds faster on the previous lap than Mika Hakkinen, so that's absolutely incredible. They've obviously put off goes the Minardi.
Genet and Johnny Herbert, you'll notice, last year's winner, this year in the Jaguar, has come in for a very early stop. He's decided, I presume, to go on to rain tyres. Now we are on lap 13 out of 67. There you see Herbert exiting. It doesn't look to me as though he is on rain tyres. It's very difficult to tell when the wheels are rotating as quickly as they are. But just look at the lead already that Michael Schumacher, having passed Mika Hakkinen, has built up over the McLaren driver. And Rubens Barrichello in the second Ferrari is catching Hakkinen. He was about 5 seconds behind him. He's now 3.3 seconds. There is Hakkinen looking visibly, to me, slower than Schumacher and Barrichello as he rounds turn 13, followed by David Coulthard.
Yes, now remember what I said at the beginning of the programme, that if you go 3 or 4 laps losing 10, 12 seconds a lap, then you may as well be on the other tyres. Now which they're doing, they're now 14 seconds off the dry pace that they started this race at. Maybe they should be in, coming in. Yes, I think they should now be in, getting some wet tyres on. But a lot of them are hanging on. Now is the moment for some wet tyres. But the problem is second-guessing the weather. Will it stop raining and dry out immediately? I think they should now be in for wets, and I'm expecting them anytime soon.
As De La Rosa's 7th challenger, here is Verstappen coming in the arrows. Behind him, Mika Salo in the Sauber. And behind David Coulthard, who is in 4th place, Fisichella is on his own in the Benetton, but what a struggle behind him as off spins again the Minardi. This is a replay of Marc Genet, Jacques Villeneuve, De La Rosa, Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar, and Ralf Schumacher are absolutely together on the circuit, fighting for 6th position. There's 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th, but 4 car lengths covers them. As Genet, who has spun off and lost his front wing, you see, comes in for a new nose cone and wing assembly. Michael Schumacher leads on lap 14 out of 67, 53 laps to go.
Well, Schumi stayed on the racetrack. I mean, I can't see where the weather's coming from, but Schumi's decided to stay. I mean, he's barely on the throttle as he comes over the line. Let's see his lap time. It's a 41. That's 19 seconds slower. It takes you 30 seconds to make a pit stop. Okay, you've got to do another 30 seconds to come in and change the tyres again. And what was going on there, Murray?
No, Ralf Schumacher doing the same as his brother as Pedro Diniz spins off. This is what the rain is doing. In comes David Coulthard from 4th position. But Ralf Schumacher's doing like his brother. He's driving magnificently in the wet. He's gone ahead of Jacques Villeneuve up into 6th position. David Coulthard goes out in about 7.4 seconds. And of course, he's got a new set of tyres on lap 15. And David Coulthard exits the pit lane as Fisichella comes through, still on his original tyres in 5th position. Now, this race is going to be a commentator's nightmare from now on as cars pour in, and Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar comes out behind De La Rosa still.
I think it's going to be a commentator's dream, to be honest, Murray, because we're going to see action all through the afternoon.
That is true.
As these people guess, second guess, change their minds or whatever, but certainly on those lap times, they're better doing 2 or 3 laps on the wet. The wet rubber can often be harder than the dry rubber, but because it's got a lot more cuts in it, the tread moves around, the blocks move around, generates more heat. It's a different type of compounding that gives more grip in cool conditions. So we know the Ferrari mechanics are out in the pit lane too. I think they'll have to respond to, yes, and that is Michael in the pit lane. Coming through what is a very slow last corner, and then over the white line at just 80 kilometers per hour. He's got to hit the button, and there are his team. He's got to hope he doesn't run over them as he did in Spain, but that was not his fault in the Catalonia Grand Prix, and I don't know if James is there.
And behind him is Mika Häkkinen. So they come in first and second. Häkkinen stops. There he is in the background. There is Fisichella coming in. So all the leaders are coming in now. And you watch Schumacher exit after 12.1 seconds. That's a very long stop. How does Mika Häkkinen's time compare?
Problem for Häkkinen's car, Murray. Long time putting the right rear on. So Häkkinen quite slow away. Now something's coming. He'll beat that out of the pit lane. So I think he lost just a few seconds there while they had a slight drama. And look, Coulthard is right up there with Michael Schumacher.
Coulthard, who has stopped. Michael Schumacher has stopped. Schumacher is now just ahead of David Coulthard as they come up behind Jenson Button. Jenson Button in the Williams. And
now Michael's on his out lap. He doesn't know how much grip there is. Coulthard's now on his first flying lap, and that's why Michael's having to defend quite aggressively there with David Coulthard, whose tyres are that bit warmer and he's got more knowledge of the racetrack.
So lap 16, here is the order at the present moment as you watch Schumacher and Coulthard and Jenson Button keeping his Williams in between them. He's led Schumacher through. He's refusing to be passed by David Coulthard. This is costing Coulthard dear in the McLaren as Jenson Button fights for position and to avoid being lapped, which he has now been.
No, that's for position, Murray, because he hasn't been in. Button, although he's on the wrong tyres, Button is actually in 7th place. Coulthard's taken that 7th place away from him, but he is on wets, but it has, as you pointed out, cost him dearly, and that will obviously be Rubens Barrichello's stop. Here he comes now. He should peel into the... Oh, even a job getting in the pit lane, look.
You can see how slippery it is. It's a long, long drag into the pit lane. Look for the yellow line where they hit the rev limiter to slow them down to the mandatory 80 miles an hour maximum. That is it. Now Barrichello looks for his pit crew. Remember what happened last week, the week before last in Spain? It's the new Ferrari filler in place of Nigel Stepney, who with his broken ankle will be watching this race. He's done an immaculate job so far, and that's a good stop by Rubens Barrichello, 7.2 seconds, and behind him there is Ralf Schumacher.
That could put Barrichello in the lead of this motor race. I don't know, I haven't seen Schumacher and Coulthard come over the start-finish line. It's totally upside down at the moment, but I wonder if that put Barrichello out in front of the race.
I think you're right, Martin. It's so easy to get it wrong, though. I think we'd better be very, very cautious until we see things how things are settling down, if they settle down. Because, as I said, there's cars flying in and out of the pits as the weather conditions deteriorate. It's wet out there, but it's not lashing down with rain like it did last year. It could well stop and the circuit start to dry out. That is exactly what happened in the Formula 3000 race yesterday, which went all topsy-turvy when the rain came down. So lap 17 out of 67, 50 to go. We've had action enough already, and look, coming towards us, previous race leader Michael Schumacher, now on a new set of Bridgestone boots. Behind him is Mika Häkkinen. They exit the chicane again as Alexander Wurz in 16th position in the peloton goes off circuit across the grass over the sawtooth rumble strip, which can be very damaging indeed.
Right, Barrichello must have had some kind of problem on that in lap because he actually is some way behind. So now it is Schumacher, Coulthard, and then Häkkinen you can see in the distance, Murray.
In third third position. So it's Ferrari, McLaren, and Pedro de la Rosa coming towards us in fourth position. Wonderful. In the points, it's a long time since they've been there. Fisichella is fifth, Button is sixth. There's a lot more to come, but we are leaving for the moment. Lap 19 out of 67. What a motor race this is, as Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari leads David Coulthard by 7 seconds. But Mika Häkkinen, the second McLaren, is catching Coulthard. A fantastic battle for fourth place between Pedro de la Rosa in the Arrows and Fisichella in the Benetton. And Eddie Irvine is in sixth position for Jaguar. In the points for Jaguar, Jos Verstappen, Arrows, seventh. Barrichello, Ferrari, down in eighth position. Johnny Herbert, the second Jaguar, in the top 10. He is ninth, and 10th is Ralf Schumacher.
Yes, well, whatever kind of problem Barrichello had on his in-lap, that's put him down in eighth, as you've seen. And just coming up now to pass Verstappen, and Verstappen may just cut across his bow there, and Barrichello realising that and giving him plenty of space. He's going to get better drive out of the corner, and now surely the next corner is Barrichello's to take seventh place. He's got more grip. No, Verstappen's not going to make it that easy for him. A nice piece of driving, Jos. So Barrichello's going to have to work to come through the field. The man who's taking it too easily, he's too cautious, is Coulthard in second place. Remember, Murray, he went off in this, leading this race easily last year by pushing too hard in the wet. Right now, I don't think he's pushing hard enough. He's losing a couple of seconds a lap to Michael Schumacher, and Häkkinen is catching him about a second and a half per lap.
This is fantastic motor racing. Sixth on the right, Eddie Irvine, Jaguar. Jos Verstappen, seventh. Rubens Barrichello in the Ferrari, eighth. Now they are fighting each other. I could hardly believe my ears after Spain when I heard people complaining about the two Schumacher brothers, Ralph in the Williams and Michael in the Ferrari, having a battle for position. It was great motor racing, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. Absolutely on the limit, as David Coulthard is being caught, as Martin's told you, by Mika Häkkinen. James Allen, what's the news?
Sensational atmosphere down here in the pit lane today, Murray. Just looking at the pit stops, Coulthard stopped for 7.4 seconds. That's not a lot of fuel to go on board, but I think he had quite a bit at the start. Now Schumacher stopped for 12 seconds. That's enough fuel for 35 laps, but he had very little fuel at the start, so they're roughly on the same sort of fuel load at the moment. Häkkinen's problem was getting the wheel nut back onto the right rear tyre. It's cost him dear, about 4 seconds. But on a day like today, with such strange and changeable conditions, it might not be the end of the world for him. But obviously, Ferrari and McLaren both think it's going to rain now for quite a long time, at least the next half an hour or 40 minutes. This race is far from over, and we definitely will have more pit stops.
And Häkkinen goes through, passes David Coulthard. Häkkinen's been lapping 2 seconds a lap faster than his teammate. He's got the bit between his teeth now. He's going for it. He's back into second position. David Coulthard there, the pole position man, goes down to third position. But Mika Häkkinen is some 12 seconds behind race leader Michael Schumacher on lap 21.
David Coulthard was looking down in the cockpit there at some point, but normally he's the man in the rain. He was he's normally absolutely flying. Remember Manicourt last year, where he just scampered off into the distance, and even here. And look, Coulthard, I think he knows that his teammate was much faster than him, gave him plenty of space to pass him going up into turn 7. So Coulthard may be carrying some kind of problem. Normally he is faster than that on a wet track.
Yeah, I remember that David Coulthard has actually got 3 broken ribs. He's recovering from them. He's a lot better than he was in Spain. But the fact is that he's got 3 broken ribs, and it's a tremendously demanding situation physically that it's in now, as the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher scythes its way through the field. He is now up behind Pedro Diniz, who is 18th. He's lapped Mazzacane. In fact, he's passed Pedro Diniz.
Yes, I think Coulthard lost 5 seconds on the last lap, Maris. I think his problem is more than a few spare ribs in there that are not doing their job. So Coulthard carrying some kind of drama in the car. James, what can you tell us about David?
Well, what I can tell you is that the last time by, David came quite close to the pit wall. Adrian Newey the chief designer, came off the pit wall and looked down, leant out over the side, took a very close look. I think it was at the front wing of the McLaren to see if there was any damage. I saw him tap Dave Ryan, who runs...
Oh! sorry, James, that was Schumacher getting it sideways. Carry on.
I saw him, this is amazing, isn't it, Murray? I saw him tap Dave Ryan, who runs Coulthard's race effort, on the shoulder and say, it's okay, Coulthard's car is okay.
Well, it may be okay, but it's not quick enough to hold that second position. We're on lap 23 now. Now, this is going to be a replay of Rubens Barrichello coming up behind Pedro de la Rosa and Eddie Irvine to try and gain track position. I've said so far, it's Verstappen, actually, I apologise. I said that Barrichello has been the disappointment of this race for me so far because he is down in 7th position. Well, he's moved up a place there, and the race order is Schumacher leading Häkkinen. As you see, Barrichello diving through inside Verstappen's arrows. Now, the arrows are in 8th position and 5th position. De La Rosa is in the top 6. And the top 6 are Michael Schumacher, 12.7 seconds, Mika Häkkinen, 4.8 seconds, David Coulthard, 9.3 seconds, Fisichella 4th, 1.3 seconds, 6.5 seconds, Rubens Barrichello, and then Eddie Irvine is still there, and Johnny Herbert is still in the top 10 for Jaguar. Now, Johnny Herbert is fighting to maintain his place in the Jaguar team next year. He really wants a good result. Well, of course, he always wants one. And last year, he got one here because he won the race in appalling conditions. Look at the track, look at the distance between Schumacher that you've seen go through, and here is Mika Häkkinen. Comparative lap times, well, Häkkinen is lapping nearly 2 seconds faster at the present moment than Schumacher.
This lap's about the same, though, and remember, Michael had to pass the car on the previous lap, and he got well out of shape, as we saw for ourselves. So I think at the end of this lap, we'll see Michael has done a 30.4, and Mika a 30.5, so the gap remains around 12.9 seconds.
Well, interestingly, in terms of the Constructors' contest, which Ferrari lead McLaren by 7 points, both the Ferrari and the McLaren teams are on 10 points. That's a replay of Michael Schumacher going into the chicane and nearly, but not, losing it. Michael Schumacher is on a potential 10 World Championship points, and that would increase his lead over Mika Häkkinen. We're going for a break. Lap 26, look at this replay of Michael Schumacher leading the race by 16 seconds, recovering from that half spin and keeping ahead of Mika Häkkinen second. David Coulthard is now 25 seconds behind the race leader and being caught by 4th place Fisichella. 5th is Rubens Barrichello, storming his way up from 8th in the second Ferrari. Pedro de la Rosa is 6th for Arrows in the points. Eddie Irvine is 7th for Jaguar. Jos Verstappen is 8th for Arrows, so both the Arrows are in the top 8. Johnny Herbert is now in 10th position because he's been caught and passed by Ralph Schumacher. Now, Jenson Button is in 14th position. Retirements, only 2 so far, and sadly it's the 2 Jordans. Jarno Trulli went out right at the beginning, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen had a major engine blowout, and he went out very early indeed. So Michael Schumacher, the reign master of Formula One, the man who's shown us time and time again what a genius he is in the wet, like the Spanish Grand Prix at Barcelona, like the Monaco Grand Prix, is now in a secure first position and lapping faster than the man you're looking at, the twice world champion Mika Häkkinen.
Yes, the McLarens are off the pace in the wet conditions, no doubt about it. The man to watch is Barrichello, who's scything his way back up the field, was 8th, is now 5th, catching Fisichella ahead of him at 1.3 seconds a lap, and the pair of them are catching David Coulthard, who is just 8 seconds behind Mika Häkkinen. So the 2 McLarens have got to find some kind of pace in these tricky conditions if they want to keep anything near to these podium positions at the end of the day.
Well, I've seen much, much worse conditions than this in the wet, and I'm not belittling the conditions now. But we're not getting those gigantic roosters. Well, we are as I talk now, and the Ferrari goes into some pretty deep water. But it's raining steadily. It is not lashing down. And Michael Schumacher, with a clear track in front of him now, is lapping at about 1 minute 29.1, which is almost a full second faster than Mika Häkkinen. And this is where the fact that Michael Schumacher is the best of the day is very much underlined. And there is, you can see the arrows being chased very hard indeed by Ralf Schumacher's Williams. That's Verstappen in 8th position. Ralf Schumacher in 9th position. Behind them is Johnny Herbert. Ahead of them is Eddie Irvine. And we're hearing news that Schumacher may be coming in. Ralf Schumacher may be coming into the pits. This is the 28th lap.
This is what I was talking about having enough fuel on board to have a decent window, because there's nothing worse than having to come in to change your tyres and then several laps later coming in again to put fuel in the car. It's a double negative, but often there's no way around it unless you run the car just ridiculously heavy at all conditions.
And now with Barrichello into 5th position and on a potential 2 World Championship points, Ferrari have got potentially more points for the Constructors' Championship here in Europe than McLaren have. Barrichello is doing a superb job, and so is Verstappen, because Verstappen in the orange arrows pursued by the white Williams of Ralf Schumacher, who tries to go through on the inside and has to run wide as Verstappen retains his line. They're both closing up on Eddie Irvine and the Jaguar, who's holding that 7th position. It's quite conceivable that here, for the first time in the year 2000, well, first time ever, we're going to see a Jaguar get a Formula 1 World Championship point. Fingers crossed.
The problem is for the driver in front, unless you're in a very slow corner where the spray just curiously just fades down and all of a sudden you can see what's going on around you and see something in your mirrors at any kind of speed over, let's say, 70, 80 miles an hour, you cannot see a thing behind you. So if a driver takes a stab at you unexpectedly, it's so easy for you just to drive in and take your normal line, especially in these conditions where you're really needing maximum concentration on the few meters of track ahead of you, rather than in the dry where you're looking down the road a little bit further.
Well, 16 seconds is the gap now between the man you're watching, Michael Schumacher. He has already won 3 Grand Prix this year. There is Mika Häkkinen, who's won 1. Schumacher, of course, did the hat-trick, got the treble, the first 3 races in Australia, Brazil, and the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola. Then David Coulthard won at Silverstone in those appalling weather conditions for the people who were trying to get there, although the track was dry. Remember that. This is the first wet race we've had this year. And then Mika Häkkinen won in Spain. So it's 3 to Ferrari, 2 to McLaren so far. And the World Championship well and truly alive, but not this race for Mika Salo, because he is out of it from 13th position. His teammate Pedro Diniz, 17th now, has been lapped.
Something yellow in the gravel trap there as well, but I don't think it's a piece of Salo. I think it must be a piece of somebody else.
I think it's his nose. Oh, I was going to say it's his nose cone, but it's off something else.
Something else early in the race, but there's no way out of there in a Formula 1 car, that's for sure.
Mika Salo in a much improved Sauber this year, but their usual problem is that they start well and then start to deteriorate with a lack of development. But they've changed the management personnel and the technical personnel at Hinwil in Switzerland, and things were actually looking much better for Sauber, but not here at the moment, as David Coulthard in 3rd position is seeing, or will be seeing soon, Giancarlo Fisichella in Benetton, the man who was 2nd in Brazil, getting closer and closer to the McLaren. There's about half a second in it. That yellow car is Mazzacane, who has been lapped. Coming towards us now, there is Fisichella, and behind him Rubens Barrichello. Now Barrichello, I remind you, has come up from 8th to 7th. From 7th to 6th, from 6th to 5th, and that's where he is now, and he's having a go at Giancarlo Fisichella's Benetton to move up into 4th position and get himself another World Championship point if he can stay there. Rubens Barrichello, of course, is no slouch in the wet. Remember how well he did at Monaco as Eddie Irvine battles battles with Jos Verstappen's arrows, and off they go. And that's Irvine and Schumacher. Ralf Schumacher out of the race. Ralf Schumacher out of the race as he was hit. Now, he's quite calmly going on, having lost the wing at the back of the Williams. He's going to go on and go back to the Williams pit, and Eddie Irvine is out of the race as a result of that coming together.
Yes, they both lost the rear wing, but it's not like going in for a new front wing, 18, 19 seconds and a few bolts. The rear wing is fixed much more rigidly and in a more complicated way to the car, and effectively, and this is how it all started, look, with Verstappen defending his line, Irvine having to get out of it. They just touched, look, Irvine spinning, Ralf almost really just an innocent bystander and just clips the rear wing as he spins around, and you can see then Johnny Herbert slicing through. So Ralf there, he probably should have seen this one coming a little bit more, but Eddie getting in deep. Verstappen, we've seen that this afternoon, he just simply will not yield to anybody, and Ralf spinning off in sympathy and losing his rear wing. And that contact, as we see later on, made the rear wing of the Jaguar of Irvine also fall off.
And it means that Johnny Herbert has moved up 2 places. He's only... Oh, and that is Jos Verstappen. No right front wheel.
That's a big crash he's had. When we see a replay of that, I suspect it's coming down to the VDOL. That may mean a safety car. And it could be into safety car scenario here.
It's going to be very tough for Michael Schumacher if that is the case, and I believe it will be, because they will have to drag that car off the circuit with one wheel missing as Verstappen runs in. It will mean that the hard-won 17-second lead that Michael Schumacher currently has over Hakkinen. Let's have a look and see what happens on the replay here as Eddie Irvine loses the rear wing-less Jaguar. No downforce, of course, so there would be no grip at the back. It just spins out and into the gravel track.
Eddie would not have known his rear wing had gone missing as he went into that corner. He'd have been more surprised than anybody when that happened. We just got no signs of any safety car, so maybe they're happy to recover that car under waved yellows. And with marshals on the track, you get waved yellows, so the drivers know there are not just machines or slow machines around or damaged cars, there are actually people around too. But at the moment, they're covering it under the waved yellows.
And a waved blue flag is being given to Ricardo Zonta in the BAR in 12th position. And that means there's somebody faster coming up behind you who wants to lap you. Get out of the way. And that's ever likely to be well, it is now. Michael Schumacher is past Zonta. So here we are, lap 32, which is just about getting on for half distance. Michael Schumacher that you're looking at with no signs of the safety car coming out, to his immense relief, not that he'll know about it, is 18 seconds ahead of Hakkinen, who is 19 seconds ahead of Coulthard, who is 7 seconds ahead of Fisichella, who has got Barrichello right behind him in 5th place. De La Rosa in the arrows is still in the points at 6th. Johnny Herbert, Jaguar, is 7th, and remember, he won the race last year for Stewart. Jacques Villeneuve is 8th, Valesi is 9th, Button is in 10th position, Alexander Wurz is 11th, and Ricardo Zonta, 12th, has been lapped.
One of those days for Jenson Button to hang around, because he could get a point, even though he's had a difficult race. I think there was some kind of drama on one lap where he lost something around 1.5 minutes in the first section of one of the laps, but if he hangs around, he might still get a point or two this afternoon. You saw a rider on the back of a scooter while Murray was talking. I think that was a quick shot of Ralf Schumacher getting a lift back to the pit. He clearly decided, and Barrichello is through. Barrichello is past Fisichella, and now he will just home in on Coulthard, who's clearly nursing some kind of drama because he's 2 to 3 seconds off the pace of the leaders, and Barrichello will now just zoom into the back of Coulthard's McLaren.
And as I've said before, we can surmise that David Coulthard in 3rd place has got a problem. We don't know what it is. Ferrari will know, McLaren will know, of course, because they will be in radio contact with. This is a replay as they come up to the chicane of Fisichella, seeing Barrichello dive up the inside of him. The Italian yields, and away they go. So that is the position, with Rubens Barrichello now up into 4th place on lap 33, half distance. Come back soon after the break. Lap 35, Michael Schumacher is the leader, and here is the Ferrari pit crew waiting to get the Ferrari in. Here is Michael Schumacher, and here is Rubens Barrichello in the second Ferrari. Into his pit, off comes the wet tyres, on go another set. The fuel filler is doing his job to perfection after Nigel Stepney was hurt last week. And now here we are again as Michael Schumacher comes into the pit lane. Michael Schumacher into the pit lane for his second stop. Now he's 18 seconds ahead of Hakkinen, and James Allen is waiting for him.
Yeah, it's a good decision by Ross Brawn. It's absolutely chucking it down now. There's no chance of this track drying out before the end of the race. This is the fuel to take Schumacher through to the end of the race. Nice, calm, relaxed pit stop by the Ferrari team. I think they feel they've got the day one here, but there is, of course, still some way to go in this motor race. Anything can happen.
And I can tell you that Mika Hakkinen has now gone through into the lead. There he is, you see. There is the McLaren of Mika Hakkinen. Now look at the pit lane and wait for Michael Schumacher coming out at a steady 80 kilometres an hour, which is what he has to do as we wait to see whether David Coulthard comes through. No, that was Ricardo Zonta in the background in the VAR, and he is well down in 12th position.
Has Coulthard too far behind. What I'm finding slightly curious is that Rubens Barrichello only stopped for 7 seconds, and there's a half distance to go. Now you use significantly less fuel in the wet, maybe up to 7 or 8% less, but even so, I'm still surprised that Barrichello wasn't stationary longer. And Louise is in the pits with Eddie Irvine, but not quite yet.
Well, let's have a look and see what's happening with Mika Hakkinen in the McLaren. He's not as good in the wet as Michael Schumacher is, which is not to say that he is not good. But it's Michael Schumacher all the way at the present moment, looking good. But if I say that, he will hit a problem. He's easing away from Ricardo Zonta, who he has already passed, as we go back now to David Coulthard in third position. But he's about 40 seconds behind Michael Schumacher, or was before the German came in for his second pit stop. So Schumacher has stopped twice. He's the only one of the top men who's stopped twice, apart from Rubens Barrichello. So both the Ferraris have stopped and are going through to the end of the race without a further planned stop.
Strange as it may seem, your biggest enemy on an afternoon like this is not the drivers in the other cars. It's those white painted lines that delineate either side of the racetrack. Put a wheel on those as you go into or leave a corner, and you'll be facing the wrong way sooner than you dare imagine.
Well, now it's up to Michael Schumacher to really go for it, because Hakkinen is leading the race by about 20 seconds as a result of the fact that Schumacher has stopped a second time and that Hakkinen, has not. We don't know what the respective fuel loads at the start of the race were for Schumacher's Ferrari and Hakkinen's McLaren. All that matter for David Coulthard's McLaren that we're looking at now. But Fisichella is in fourth position behind David Coulthard in your picture at the present moment. Pedro Della Rosa is fifth. Rubens Barrichello, as a result of his stop, is down to sixth position, but is again catching the arrows very rapidly indeed. Johnny Herbert hovering just outside the points in the Jaguar. It would be poetic justice if Herbert is the first man to score a World Championship point for Jaguar, as he was the first, indeed the only man, to score a World Championship win for the Stewart team, which has metamorphosised itself into Jaguar. Jacques Villeneuve is 8th. Jenson Button is now in the top 10 and 9th position. Alexander Woods is in 10th position. There are 15 drivers still left out of the 21 who started, because remember, Nick Heidfeld, the German in his home country, driving for Prost, was not able to start because his car was found to be 2 kilos underweight at the end of qualifying, an absolutely unintentional mistake. And we're now on lap 38. Now, David Coulthard is lapping marginally quicker at the present moment than Mika Hakkinen, his teammate, but Hakkinen is some 10 seconds ahead.
I don't know what's happening with Michael Schumacher. He didn't pass the car on the last lap. He's still got Zonta behind him. That's the resultant damage of Verstappen Verstappen's accident, we still haven't seen a replay as to how he managed to bin his car quite in that fashion. But as you say, Coulthard actually faster than Schumacher too at the moment. So since Michael changed to this set of tyres, he hasn't really had a blistering pace yet.
No, it's strange, but when you change tyres, it can dramatically affect your performance. As I've said before, tyres are now the only handmade thing in the sense of humans construct them on a motor car, and they are laboriously built up ply by an operative, and as a result of that you can get marginal differences from one set of tyres to another, and marginal differences in the tyre can make more than marginal differences to the performance of the car on the track.
Yes, and of course we know Michael took on 11.8 seconds worth of fuel to see him to the end of the race, but nonetheless it's not enough to justify this kind of lap time difference, although of course the extra mass in the car to turn it, accelerate it and slow it down in the wet conditions, it does have a more dramatic effect than in dry conditions. But sometimes, strangely enough, it can also settle the car down and make it handle and go better.
Well, the conventional wisdom is that you need about 20-25 seconds lead to get into your garage, having slowed down, take on a new set of tyres and wheels and get out again, still in the lead. And that's about what Mika Häkkinen has got now. Have McLaren got some fiendish master plan up their sleeves, which is going to enable Mika Häkkinen to win 2 races in succession? But the twice world champion last year and the year before, he's 25 seconds ahead on the previous lap. He's coming up to complete his 39th lap now, enter his 40th lap. And I remind you, 25 seconds to the nearest 1/10 was the lead he had over Michael Schumacher. Is that increasing or not as he closes up on Alexander Wurz in 10th position to lap the Benetton? So Häkkinen leads, Schumacher second, Coulthard third, Fisichella in the Benetton catching David Coulthard just as Mika Häkkinen is catching his teammate, Fisichella's teammate, Wurz, and Michael Schumacher has still, there he goes, over the line now, and the gap has increased. Mika Häkkinen is pulling away on his lighter fuel load from Michael Schumacher at about 1.5 seconds a lap. And he's got very nearly now the window that he needs to get in, change tyres and wheels and get out still in the lead. That's the Williams pit crew all ready to receive either Jenson Button or just checking whether, no, Ralf Schumacher is out of the race as a result of that coming together with Eddie Irvine. In fact, here are the retirements in the order of retirement as you watch 4th place Fisichella at his pit stop. Jarno Trulli and Heinz-Harald Frentzen both out very early. Now the arrows goes through of Pedro de la Rosa to take 4th position. Salo is out, Schumacher Ralf is out, Verstappen is out, Eddie Irvine is out. There is Fisichella joining the pits. Pedro de la Rosa has gone through. There he is in 4th position. So a terrific drive by Pedro de la Rosa, and everybody in Arrows will be keeping their fingers crossed because they have yet to score a World Championship point this year.
Well, to give Mika Häkkinen track position when he makes his necessary one more stop, I think he needs over half a minute. You see the end of Jenson Button's second stop of the afternoon, and again full to the end of the race, of course. But I think Mika Häkkinen, whoops, Jenson, calm down a bit. I think Mika Häkkinen needs well over half a minute to make sure he's got track position on Michael Schumacher. And Michael Schumacher's just pegged the gap back a little bit. Hope Jenson's seen him coming, and he has.
Yeah, and you probably noticed that as Jenson Button exited the pit lane, the fuel filler flap was still up. That is because the new electronic regulations require the fuel flap to be up and the tail light to be flashing until second gear has been engaged.
Yes, and Mika Häkkinen is being held up, the race leader. Now he's let him through. That has cost Häkkinen quite a lot of very crucial time at this part of the race, where, as I said, he needs a window to make his pit stop and get out ahead of Michael Schumacher. He's had 2 very, very poor laps following Fisichella.
Yeah, it's lost him at least a couple of seconds. The lead of Mika Häkkinen that you're looking at has come down from 27 seconds to about 25 seconds. It's going to be a very close run for lap 41, 67 lap race. Häkkinen leads Schumacher. Coulthard is still third, being caught by De La Rosa, but only at the rate of about a tenth of a second a lap. Barrichello is still fifth, but he's right behind De La Rosa and will, I soon predict, be up into fourth place again. This is Wurz coming in from top 10 and Louise Good. So there is Alexander Wurz, 9th position when he came in. Jenson Button, I think, may well get that 9th position back. He was ahead of Wurz before he came into the pits. And Johnny Herbert in 7th position, in 8th position, because Villeneuve's got ahead of him, is about to be lapped by the Flying Finn, as he calls himself, Mika Häkkinen. And news from Louise Goodman, who's with Eddie Irvine.
Yes, I am now. Thankfully, this rain getting into my electrics as well as everything else. Eddie, Tuttle back there, were you aware that the fact that you'd lost your rear wing?
I looked in the mirror, I checked the rear car, everything looked okay, but obviously it wasn't. And then I obviously went down the next straight. So I'm surprised, because normally you would notice the rear being very, very light, which it wasn't, so strange.
Running strongly until then, the team seemed to pull up their performance this weekend.
Yeah, we haven't been bad. You know, this sort of circuit suits the car. It's a bit light on the rear end, and then the qualifying went reasonably well, and I think the race was going reasonably well. The wet, we definitely had the car on dry settings, which wasn't exactly ideal, but it was hard work. It was really hard work. The rear end kept going all the time, so I was really working hard to stay where I was.
Cheers, Eddie.
Johnny Herbert, Eddie Irvine's teammate, coming into the pits from 8th position for his second stop of the day.
Consistent rain now, Murray, really. Not heavy rain. I don't expect a lot of standing water or aquaplaning, especially online. I think if they move offline, you see a little bit more of that, but it tracked the drains reasonably well. So it's just a question of staying in those wheel tracks. The cars, they lose about 5-6 miles an hour down the straights, as we see a Lacey coming up the inside of Wurz, and that is actually for position, called 10th position. They're a lap down between them. But lifting all that water up into the air, the tyres are lifting bucket loads of water into the sky effectively, and that takes a lot of energy, a lot of power, and you lose quite a lot of straight line speed because of that.
Now Häkkinen's got his work cut out, because he's coming up to Jacques Villeneuve, who is 7th, who is trying to get past Fisichella's blue Benetton in 6th position. And Villeneuve will be concentrating on getting past Fisichella, not on letting Mika Häkkinen through. Now, there's very little difference between their lap times, but every tenth of a second that Mika Häkkinen loses to Michael Schumacher, who's 25 seconds behind him now, is going to be absolutely critical when the Finn comes in for his second, we presume, and last pit stop. Because I can't believe he is not going through. We're on lap 43 now out of 67. So, Fisichella there, 6th position. Villeneuve, 7th. Mika Häkkinen leading the race, but he's got to get past these two, because he's being held up. Doesn't look much, but he is being held up as Villeneuve goes for Fisichella and throws up an enormous amount of spray in Mika Häkkinen's face, obscuring the Finn's visibility. Now, it's 25 seconds between Häkkinen and Villeneuve, or was when this lap started. I predict it's going to be a lot less than that at the end of this lap, because Schumacher is lapping in about 1 minute 30.9. Villeneuve is lapping in 1 minute 33.8.
Yes, McLaren's decision to start the cars fat with fuel looks very smart at the moment, but this is the stage of the race where Häkkinen needs to be capitalising on that, while the Ferraris effectively right now have a higher fuel load, as the McLaren one is running down, and he's gone for the inside. Villeneuve's seen him, an ex-world champion himself, of course, Villeneuve, and smart enough to know what's going on around him. Coulthard massively off the pace. I don't know how he's keeping 3rd place. I think McLaren should get him in the pits, maybe change his tyre pressures or something, give him a bit more pressure if he's aquaplaning or whatever, if he is struggling on any standing water. Although there doesn't, as I said, there doesn't appear to be much to me, but Coulthard struggling for lap time. He really should come in and have another set of tyres.
And I was so wrong about Pedro de la Rosa replay of Häkkinen lapping Villeneuve. Now, I was so wrong about De La Rosa and Barrichello. I said Barrichello would rapidly regain the 4th place he had got by passing De La Rosa after the pit stops. He's not done so. De La Rosa from Spain in the Arrows is holding 4th position. And then he's not only that, but he's catching David Coulthard at the rate of about 1.5 seconds a lap. He's 27 seconds behind him at the present moment, and Rubens Barrichello is not closing the gap as Häkkinen goes through and passes and laps Fisichella. So Häkkinen, there's only 5 people on the same lap now, and that is lap 45. Häkkinen, Schumacher, and the gap is down to 22 seconds. It's bad news for Mika Häkkinen. The gap is down for 22 seconds, and so as a result of being held up, Häkkinen has lost nearly 3 seconds. Coulthard is 3rd, De La Rosa is 4th, Barrichello is in 5th position, and those are the only 5 on this lap.
Yes, he's lost 3 seconds, but that's like a net 6 or 7, because I think at this stage of the race, you would expect him, he was, until he called that traffic, pulling away. Now that's clearly the McLaren mechanics in the pit lane. I'd be surprised if they're going to bring Mika in unless he just has to have fuel. Otherwise, they'd let him use that clear air. Does he come in the pit lane? Yes, he does. It is for Mika Häkkinen. So unfortunately for him, he clears the traffic just as he has to come in for fuel. He's clearly got not enough fuel to go any further. So James is waiting for him.
Colossal frustration down here in the McLaren garage. They really are upset. That traffic has really messed up their race effort. But to be honest, he was going to need about 40 seconds anyway to get it back out ahead. Looking at what happened with Michael when he made his stop and how much time Häkkinen made up on him. So it's not a bad stop so far. That's the fuel to the end of the race. Slow getaway, trying to find his gear.
Schumacher through, James. I'm sorry. Schumacher has passed Mika Häkkinen in the pit lane. Here is Michael Schumacher regaining the lead. There on the left is Mika Häkkinen back again into 2nd position. So that held-up period really did cost Mika Häkkinen a lot of time.
Well, it's a new adventure now for Häkkinen. How do these tyres feel now? A little bit of extra fuel, but we know both cars must have identical fuel levels, give or take a kilo or 2, to get to the end of the motor race, as Coulthard comes in too from a distant 3rd place. So Coulthard in for his 2nd stop, and I expect now Michael Schumacher to pull away another second or 2 in these first 2 laps before then we see which one of them, if Häkkinen can close that gap down. A decent stop there from Coulthard. That was critical. Can he get back out ahead of De La Rosa and Barrichello?
Well, here's De La Rosa and Barrichello. Here they come out on the right. There is David Coulthard on the left, and De La Rosa goes through, and Barrichello goes through. So David Coulthard has lost 2 places. He's gone down from 3rd to 5th. Magnificent Pedro De La Rosa in the orange arrows. Here he is coming towards us. He's up into a podium position. Well, he's got a World Championship point in the past. Last year he got one, but the possibility of him finishing on the podium in 3rd position is a really exciting one, something that Formula One really needs.
Yes, we didn't see De La Rosa stop, to my knowledge, and I don't know how long or exactly when he stopped in this race. So he is the only one of the front runners that's had 1 pit stop, which is entirely feasible, but we'll try and look into which lap De La Rosa stopped on.
Yeah, I was expecting when this race began, you're looking at Barrichello now, and Barrichello is in 4th position. I was expecting when this race began for most of them to stop once. In fact, it's just the opposite. They've stopped twice.
Yes, once for fuel and once for tyres, really, but we think De La Rosa stopped about lap 15, so I'm reasonably certain he will have to stop again. And there's Coulthard now down to 5th place, and the slow lap times in the middle section of the race has cost him a podium place for sure.
Well, David Coulthard could regain 1 place if Pedro De La Rosa comes in, which seems likely. I don't see that David Coulthard could gain 2 places and finish on the podium. It's looking more and more as though it's going to be a Ferrari victory with a Ferrari 3rd place. Michael Schumacher winning the race, Rubens Barrichello being in 3rd place, sandwiching Mika Häkkinen, which would help enormously Michael Schumacher's lead over Häkkinen in the Drivers' Championship and Ferrari's lead over McLaren in the Constructors' Championship. But there are still 20 laps to go. The leaders are on their 47th lap now as the Ferrari goes through. So we've got a bit of a lull in this terrific race, so leave us and rejoin us later. Lap 49, Pedro de la Rosa, having driven magnificently in third position, comes in for his second pit stop. Barrichello is up into third. Ferrari's first and third, sandwiching Mika Häkkinen. News from Louise Goodman.
Yeah, down in the Arrows garage, I can tell you they're loving it. So well they would. De la Rosa running a very strong fourth. When you bear in mind that his car is fully set up for the dry conditions, it really puts into perspective the guys doing a great job. They've been constantly monitoring the weather. It's to carry on raining right till the end of the race, but he's in 5 Rosa through to the end of the race, and hopefully he's going to keep that fourth position.
Yeah, he was half asleep on his pit stop though. I think it threw him. They did not change his tyres, which is a smart move. They just went to fuel him as he gets lapped by race leader Michael Schumacher, and De La Rosa very dozy in getting away.
I think he thinks it's Barrichello.
He probably couldn't understand why his car wasn't up in the air. The team quite smartly thought the tyres are not going to wear out, just leave them on, go for a quick splash and go, and De La Rosa's slow away, but we now know he's got enough fuel, of course, to the end of the race as you're watching Marc Genet in the Minardi.
From 13th position, retiring from the European Grand Prix. Lap 50, 17 to go. Michael Schumacher leads Mika Häkkinen that you're looking at by 13 seconds. Rubens Barrichello in the second Ferrari back to third position, 60 seconds behind his teammate who is leading. Up into fourth position comes David Coulthard. To fifth position comes Fisichella. De La Rosa, I'm not sure whether he is down to seventh, letting Johnny Herbert up into sixth, or whether the Arrows is still in the points for sixth position. We'll know very shortly. But behind them, Jenson Button is in eighth position, ahead of Alexander Wurz and Ricardo Zonta. Everybody up to sixth position has been lapped, and there are now 17 laps to go.
Yes, the German producer's not showing it to us at the moment, but Jenson Button is all over the back of Johnny Herbert like a bad suit, and this being Jenson's first wet race, of course. So he stayed on the black stuff so far, has Jenson, and a good scrap going on with Johnny Herbert. And there's a 10-second stop-and-go penalty for Jean Alesi, some incident that we certainly haven't seen. So Alesi with a 10-second stop-and-go, and he is currently 12th.
Well, this is 7th to 10th. Just look at it. Johnny Herbert, Jenson Button, Alexander Wurz, Ricardo Zonta, in respectively the Jaguar, the Williams, the Benetton and the BAR. Johnny Herbert holding them up a bit. You've heard from Martin how valiantly Jenson Button is trying to get ahead of his countryman Johnny Herbert, but Johnny is looking for a World Championship point, and he possibly needs one more than anybody else in this race, because as I said earlier on, there has been talk about his position in the Jaguar team next year being under threat. If he can get a point here, as he won the race for Stewart last year, it would help him enormously. Now Zonta comes in, he's peeled off from the back, he's come in for his second pit stop in the BAR, and of course that's reduced the battle that was ahead of him to 3 men, Johnny Herbert and Button and Wurz.
Well, that was pretty gormless as well. He just wandered into his pit. He's not in the centre of it at all, ran into his jack man, into the jack itself. I mean, just wake up.
Well, you can see how the cars are slipping and sliding in these conditions. Just imagine being in the car, an enormous noise going on behind you, you're fighting for grip, there's 800 horsepower being pumped out. Just the merest whiff of too much throttle and you can be off the circuit. And we're seeing again, as we have seen so many times in the past, how superlatively good Michael Schumacher is in the wet. Now, that's the Ferrari pit crew coming out.
Now, I wonder if they short-filled Barrichello's car, because 7 seconds, in my view, was not enough. And what is that going on? That's De Nitz taking Zonta, who's just made a pit stop for 10th place. But I'm wondering why Ferrari can really, I think, we know Michael took 11.8 seconds of fuel. I think yes, it's Barrichello, look, coming in. I was right about that. I just didn't think they put enough fuel in his car. And this plays back into Coulthard's hands, but he doesn't appear to have any speed to do anything about it.
Well, I'm just watching the road as you're watching Barrichello coming into the pit lane to see whether David Coulthard comes through and retakes that third position. He was 19 seconds behind the Ferrari. It's going to be mighty close, but there's only just a little fuel gone in, and Barrichello
exits the pit, and Coulthard has yet to go through. There he is! Watch it, watch the exit. Barrichello is going to come out, and I think David Coulthard is going to get ahead of him, and he's done so. There he is, David Coulthard, third position. So it is Ferrari leading Schumacher, McLaren second Häkkinen, McLaren third Coulthard, Ferrari fourth Barrichello, Fisichella is fifth, and Pedro de la Rosa is still sixth ahead of Johnny Herbert.
I think Barrichello will be asking some serious questions at the end of this race to understand what on earth they were doing. Why didn't they put a dozen seconds of fuel in his car like they did Michael Schumacher at the same point of the race? Very bizarre. Maybe they had a refueling rig problem or something, but clearly they just didn't get enough fuel in that car at that crucial stop.
You are right, but it is very strange because, as we've said many, many times, Ross Brawn is the master tactician in Formula One. It seems strange that he would get it wrong, but maybe there's more to it than meets the eye. Anyway, we're on lap 53 now, and Barrichello knows he's got to really get the hammer down. The gap between himself and David Coulthard, I would estimate at about 10 seconds. I won't know until the end of this lap, but it must be something like that. And he's got ahead of him Fisichella.
That's Michael Murray, sorry to butt in, but that's Michael coming up to lap Fisichella. So Barrichello is, I think, some way down the road from Fisichella, but he's now got a job on to catch Coulthard. Barrichello, I think, has got the faster pace in the wet without anyone. In fact, no thinking about it, he has. Can he get back at Coulthard in the remaining laps of this race? And has Coulthard got any kind of margin left in his pocket? Whatever problem he's carrying, he's got to find some more speed from somewhere.
Well, Michael's lapping about 2 seconds faster than Fisichella. We'll see, hopefully, how he copes with him. And we see David Coulthard now looking good for that third position, which would give McLaren 10 World Championship points in the Constructors' Championship if he stays where he is.
So that's Coulthard's board then. Look, P3, 14 laps to go, plus 8.4, and they've read that off the same computer that we give you the information from as they've checked it out at the first sector on the lap that they're on. So it's the earliest piece of information you're going to get, and they're already getting that on the board for, and this is Häkkinen now, coming up to a lap de la Rosa.
Yeah, who is in 6th position, and off goes Zonta, the other BAR, down there in the gravel strip, and he's beached it, the rear wheel's spinning, they're off the gravel, so he won't get any purchase. I hope the safety car will not come out because he's judged to be in an unsafe position, but it's going to be mighty difficult to remove him unless they've got a crane truck that can lift him off, because they can't tow him out backwards, and they certainly can't tow him out forwards because they would be on the tarmac. Here's a replay of what happened to Ricardo Zonta.
He would have snatched the front brake on the way in, run wide, and tried to power his way back onto the racetrack and beached it on the curb. Again, look, very, very tricky position. The drivers must respect the double-waved yellows. They must slow down, but they don't always, especially in the closing stages of a Grand Prix. How much do you slow down? How much is a little bit slower? That's the problem. And it's so easy for another car to snatch a brake and go in there, and that must be Fisichella's Wirtz taking a shortcut that won't pay off. And
trying to catch Jensen, trying to get past Jensen Button and failing to do so. Now, a word about Button. We know that he's under pressure, just as Johnny Herbert is, because Frank Williams, to a lot of people's surprise, doesn't seem to be as enthusiastic about Button as we thought he might be. But Jensen, again, is in a first. It's his first wet Formula One race. And although he started well down, Häkkinen, hand out, what's that mean?
That's Mika's very clever way of saying, look, I really am slowing down. I'm extra slowing down. Look, I've even only got one hand on the steering wheel. Quite a smart move there from Mika. He has respected the flags. He does, like all the drivers, he does respect the job that the marshals do. They risk their lives for our safety, but he's making sure that the FIA, that the people who control the race see it without question.
Yeah, good thinking, and he was doing it, of course, because he had seen Zonta's car in the gravel. As we watch the Ferrari of Rubens Barrichello, now we'll see whether he's catching David Coulthard. The gap was 8.5 seconds between Barrichello in 4th position and Coulthard in 3rd. Well, he is catching him, but not quickly. 8.3 seconds as we leave the Nürburgring.
That's just a quick replay there of Häkkinen just demonstrating to... He's not really talking to the marshals on the corner, he's talking to the stewards of the race who are watching this on TV. Now we'll go to the break, back very shortly.
10 laps to go. Are Ferrari going to make it their 4th win of the year? And even more interestingly from their point of view, are they going to have 3rd place as well? It looks as though the former is yes, it looks as though the latter is no. Michael Schumacher leads Häkkinen by a decreasing margin of 7.6 seconds, with David Coulthard being caught by Barrichello, but not fast enough. Fisichella is 5th and De La Rosa is 6th.
I had to disagree with you, Murray, but I think Barrichello is plenty fast enough to catch David Coulthard at the moment. But amazingly, Barrichello is about to be lapped by his teammate, and at this level of the game, that is the ultimate embarrassment. Even though clearly whoever decided Barrichello's strategy, it's definitely not helped him on the afternoon with that extra pit stop. But Barrichello about to be lapped by teammate Michael Schumacher, and that gives you a pretty good indication of just how well Schumacher and Häkkinen have been going this afternoon in these treacherous conditions, because they're lapping for the 4th place man.
You may be surprised to have seen Pedro Diniz move over and let Wurz through when they're running next to each other in position. But it's Fisichella going through now. He's in 5th position, and now Häkkinen goes through and laps again the Sauber of Pedro Diniz. So Giancarlo Fisichella has been lapped. Here is Mika Häkkinen storming up behind him on the 58th lap out of 67.
This has been a terrible lap for Mika Häkkinen. He's lost over 2 seconds passing those passing the Sauber on this lap to Michael Schumacher. And this is why, look, you have to hover. You can't just drill it in there just in case he turns in on you. You've got to be more positive if you're letting somebody through and give them more than a car and a half to go at. And Michael has now lapped Barrichello. That's not going to help Barrichello's cause much, unless Michael can also lap Coulthard and hold him up in some way, which is he's more than capable of doing and understanding. But he's only 10 seconds ahead of Mika Häkkinen, so he hasn't got that much of a comfort zone.
I remember once when Michael Schumacher actually backed off as he was winning a race to help his brother, who was then driving for the Jordan team. No question of that, of course, at this race, when Mika Häkkinen is treading so comparatively closely on his heels, watched by Ron Dennis on the McLaren pit lane position.
This happened to me in Hungary when I was driving for McLaren. I was running 3rd, and I let Michael ease past me, trying to hide my problems, but he spotted that I'd got a problem, backed off. He made me unlap myself, and then his teammate overtook my stricken car on the very last lap and booted me off the podium. That was Verstappen, as it happens, when they were both at Benetton. So Michael is very good at thinking about what's going on around him.
Yeah, people think that you just jump in the racing car and go absolutely flat out. You're probably at about 90% of your potential, and you're thinking all the time, and the actual racing actions are, if not automatic, getting that way when you're at the level that people like Schumacher, Ralph and Michael and Mika Häkkinen are at. So we're into the 60s now, lap 60 out of 67, and if this race concludes the way it is now, and Barrichello is continuing, as Martin's rightly pointed out, to close up on David Coulthard. Not terribly quickly, but he is getting closer all the time. It's going to be Ferrari's 1st and 4th, but it might be Ferrari 1st and 3rd.
Yes, Barrichello curiously lost a lot of time on the last lap being lapped by his teammates. So that didn't help his cause very much, and definitely played into David Coulthard's hands. But Barrichello still has got the speed, but he's going to be somewhat deflated seeing another scarlet car whiz past him.
So let's assume that Michael Schumacher wins at this race. Whoa!
It's the white line I was telling you about.
He won't do it if there's much more of that and it gets worse. But let's assume he wins it, Martin. Is it going to be Michael Schumacher's skill, the Ferrari's performance, or the Ferrari team's strategy?
I think it's a combination of everything, but I think Michael has been pretty supreme this afternoon. His strategies have been different, but I don't think there's been much of an advantage. They both pitted roughly the same time for wets and refueling, etc., etc. So you have to say, on the afternoon, Michael has made a better fist of it. I think right from the beginning, as soon as it started to spit with rain, it was clear to see the Ferrari was better suited to the tricky conditions.
Well, it's going to be mighty close for third position, because Barrichello has nipped another second out of David Coulthard's lead over him. David Coulthard is third, and Barrichello's got the gap down now to 6 seconds with 6 laps to go, including the one they're on.
Yes, now this is very, very interesting, because to get to Michael Schumacher, Häkkinen has got to lap Schumacher's teammate, and to keep, I mean, Häkkinen's really homing in on Schumacher at the moment. To keep Häkkinen away, he's got to leapfrog Häkkinen's teammate to lap him. So Coulthard might come into play in this race yet, and also Barrichello can do a pretty good job of spoiling Mika Häkkinen's race. Either which way, I think it could play into Coulthard's hands, and we could see a little bit of argy-bargy with people unintentionally, in inverted commas, holding other people up.
What we don't know, of course, is to what extent, if any, Michael Schumacher has got something in reserve. He knows that Häkkinen's closing up on him. He's in touch with his team by radio. He'll be getting pit boards.
What he's now got in reserve is Rubens Barrichello as rear gunner. So Ferrari may have pulled Barrichello into that position, and Michael Schumacher may not even have to risk passing David Coulthard.
So, lap 61, the race order: Schumacher, Häkkinen, Coulthard. The remaining 3 in the points: Rubens Barrichello, who's now 5.3 seconds behind Coulthard. Fisichella in the Benetton, looking good for another points finish. Pedro de la Rosa keeping his fingers crossed for the first point for Arrows of this season. Johnny Herbert is 7th, and there he is, followed by Jenson Button's Williams 8th, and Alexander Wurtz's Benetton 9th.
And David Coulthard's about to catch this little gaggle having a squabble. So Coulthard now, who's still really under pressure, he's got Schumacher homing up behind him to lap him. Barrichello just behind that, now just 5.3 seconds adrift. How David Coulthard is in third position this afternoon, I'll never know, with the whatever his problems are, whatever the reason, his lack of pace. But he's going to have to work hard to defend that. Look, Coulthard now has Michael Schumacher, the race leader, behind him.
So, lap 62, and if anybody in the first 6 goes out of this race, the car that you're looking at in the lead here, 7th place Johnny Herbert is, and here is the Ferrari.
Coulthard yields. Coulthard had to yield, so blue flags are waving. Wave blue flags for car 2, it says on the computer. So he'd obviously passed at least 4 of them, and he had to yield, otherwise he'll be given a stop-go penalty.
So, through to complete the lap goes Michael Schumacher. He's into his 63rd lap now as the Johnny Herbert Jaguar. Button, Williams, Wurtz, Benetton battle continues, being caught by Michael Schumacher to lap him.
Yes, this is Coulthard yielding. He has to do that to let the race leader through. He has been lapped. Now Barrichello just 2.3 seconds behind third place man Coulthard. Häkkinen just 5.9 behind race leader Michael Schumacher, but we know he's got to clear his own teammate and Michael's teammate to get to him.
And Michael Schumacher passes Wurtz's Benetton, so he's passing these people which Häkkinen behind him has then got to pass. So, lap 63, just 4 laps to go at the end of this one. Michael Schumacher keeping it on the field, on the tarmac, in spite of these appalling mist clouds in front of him, and Jenson Button now. Is he going to turn across? Yes, he does. Michael Schumacher backs off very sensibly, and Button sees them, holds the Ferrari back. This is, and look at Häkkinen. So, and Coulthard in the McLaren, it's mighty close, and there's only 4 laps to go, and there is just 2 people on the same lap at the present moment, Michael Schumacher and his Finnish rival Mika Häkkinen in 2nd place.
And Jenson Button lost out badly there. He's lost a place to Wurtz, so he goes down into 9th. But look at Barrichello trying to get up the inside of Coulthard. They're both being held up by the scrap that's going on. A further lap. They're lapping. They're already a lap down themselves. The other people getting in the way are 2 laps down, but Coulthard got a reasonable run out of the corner. Where is Barrichello in that spray? Still behind him, Luke.
Yeah, remember Spain. Remember the way that Rubens Barrichello nipped past the Schumacher brothers, but then he had Michael helping him by holding Ralph out, and there the Ferrari flying past. That's Michael Schumacher in the lead, flying past Johnny Herbert to lap the Jaguar in 7th position. So keep this order in your mind. Schumacher leading, Häkkinen 2nd, Coulthard 3rd, Rubens Barrichello right behind him. Fisichella is 5th, Herbert is 7th, and they're virtually together on the track itself.
Even the camera can't see hardly now, look. So, the visors do get penetrated with water. You start peering through little holes in the end, trying to just pick out the curbs and braking point. Michael, dangerously close to the edge of the track again.
But the vital thing is that Michael Schumacher has now cleared the people he was lapping and has got an open track in front of him. He can see where he is going. He's on his 64th lap. He's got 3 laps to go at the end of this to make it the 4th Ferrari win of the year 2000, as Alexander Wurz comes up behind Johnny Herbert's Jaguar and has a go. Wurz trying to improve his reputation this year.
Yes, and Coulthard slow out of the Vidal. They're going to touch surely.
Oh, off they go. That's tragic for Johnny Herbert, but he's kept it on the island. Brilliant. Now has he got the engine running? But that's cost Wurz his place. But it may be that and Jenson Button, now where is he? Well, there is David Coulthard with Barrichello right behind him. They are 3rd and 4th, but we need to look back down the field a bit. Wurz is out of the race.
Yes, so that actually cleared the way a bit for Coulthard, but I think Barrichello is much quicker under braking, and surely he's going to nail David down into the Vidal later in this lap. David's going to have to keep to the inside and make this is a replay of Barrichello trying to, no, in fact the camera then cuts away. Look, you're just always going to run wide, and well, I think Johnny must have known the laws of physics there, that the Benetton was surely, he should have going to come towards the outside of the corner, should have given him a little bit more space.
Well, it actually hasn't helped Johnny Herbert, because he is still not in the top 6 as a disconsolate Alexander Wurz walks in to make an explanation. Notice he's got 1 blue boot and 1 red boot. That's his good luck symbol. Hasn't done him much good in this race. Michael Schumacher on lap 65, 10 seconds now ahead of Mika Häkkinen as a result of weaving his way through the traffic better than the Finns. Is looking very, very good indeed for his 4th win of the year.
Button is out of the race. I can see on the computer car 10 has stopped, so Jenson Button is out of this race. And look, there is the dice for 3rd place as they go over the line. So Barrichello can't find a way through the spray. He didn't find a way up the inside into Vidal, and Coulthard has to somehow hang on for 1 more lap. Crucial for David, while he's struggling with his injuries or whatever he's got to carry, he needs to maximise his points in this race. He cannot afford to yield that place to Rubens Barrichello.
Well, David's had a 1st, he's had 3 thirds, one of which was disallowed. He's had a 3rd, he's driven magnificently this season. He's 3rd in the World Championship. If he can stay ahead of Rubens Barrichello on this final lap, it's going to help him. On this last lap but 1, it's going to help him as the Ferrari technicians look anxiously at their monitors, and Michael Schumacher is on his 66th and last lap but 1. That was the Ferrari. Now the next car up will be Mika Häkkinen's McLaren. There it is, and David Coulthard, and behind him is Rubens Barrichello.
So Barrichello, I think his best chance is at the next corner after this. So if he's got, Häkkinen's given up. Häkkinen's satisfied with 2nd place. He's now 13 second. He realises he's not going to leapfrog those 2 in the time available. And Barrichello just nowhere near close enough, even though he's much stronger on the brakes into this Vidal. So now Coulthard knows where his strengths and weaknesses are. Barrichello's got better traction. We've seen him overtake cars out of this chicane all afternoon. But Coulthard knows he's got to have just enough distance into Vidal, and he's guaranteed then this podium position. But now, can Barrichello get a run up? There's a lot of grip up to the inside of turn 1 in the rain here. It is amazing how late and deep you can go on the brakes. Barrichello, I expected him to pop out of the spray, but he just couldn't do so. Strong engine there in Coulthard's car. Barrichello driving absolutely blind, and total faith in the car in front.
Well, these two are not going to go the full race distance. Only Michael Schumacher, who is now on his last lap, and Mika Häkkinen are going to do that. But it certainly looks like being Ferrari, McLaren, McLaren, Ferrari, because look, on this last lap for him, David Coulthard is staying ahead of Rubens Barrichello as they exit turn 5 on this 13-turn corner track, and Michael Schumacher comes out of turn 8 with the German horns, the air horns blowing, the flags are waving. Schumi is their hero, and you can see Ferrari flags all round the track. A magnificent, if he gets there, and he hasn't got far to go, the Ferrari mechanics already crowding the pit lane. And Michael Schumacher is coming in to win his 4th race of the year, to extend his World Championship lead over Mika Häkkinen by a further 4 points, from 14 points to 18 points. Schumacher wins in Germany.
And Coulthard, I think, is going to maintain the 3rd. He took a 2nd somewhere out of Barrichello, and there's Coulthard 3rd, Barrichello 4th, and curiously 2nd place man coming over the line now, nearly a lap ahead. So Häkkinen, a slightly disconsolate cruise over the line. Great drive from Michael Schumacher.
And with Pedro de la Rosa in 6th position in the Arrows, behind Fisichella in 5th place, it means to say that Arrows magnificently in their newly liveried bright orange motor car have finished in the points for the first time this year to give Pedro de la Rosa his 2nd World Championship point in his 2nd year of Grand Prix racing. A very, very happy Ferrari team. Well, McLaren have got 10 World Championship points to Ferrari's 13. It could have been worse, but the fact remains that the gap in both championships between Schumacher in the drivers and Ferrari and McLaren in the constructors has increased. In fact, now Michael Schumacher is on 46 World Championship points to Mika Häkkinen's 28. David Coulthard is still 3rd. Rubens Barrichello is in 4th place as he was before. Ralf Schumacher is still 5th, and Fisichella is still in 10th position. Well, as ever in Grand Prix racing in Formula 1, a wet race, particularly one that starts off dry and becomes wet all the other way round, has turned out to be immensely exciting and dramatic, and it really does look as though the tide after all these years has turned for Ferrari, led by the little man that you see walking into the Ferrari garage, Jean Todt, the Frenchman, who recruited Ross Brawn, the Englishman, Rory Byrne, the South African, Michael Schumacher, the German, to help him bring Ferrari back to the front, and he's certainly done it here.
Important day for Ferrari, because clearly McLaren were gathering pace and coming back at them with some energy after those dominant 3 wins by Michael in the first 3 races. And Ferrari today have nailed that. They've stopped that march, and I think it was a very significant day in this year's World Championship.
Yes, and the thing is that in recent years, Ferrari has started off the season not as well as McLaren, but have closed the gap as the season went on. This year, it's been just the reverse. They started off tremendously strongly with those 3 successive victories, then lost the next 2 races to David Coulthard for McLaren and Mika Häkkinen for McLaren, and have now won the 6th. There's 17 races in the series. We've got a new race in America, the 15th race of the year, in the 3rd week of September. And it looks as though the championship is going to get more and more exciting, because McLaren at Woking with Mercedes-Benz power will not give up. Led by Ron Dennis, they've got years and years of experience, and they know that the championship is never over until it's over. Michael Schumacher giving his distinctive pumping action from his 2 fists, and Mika Häkkinen draws alongside him. McLaren now Ferrari are now on 62 World Championship points to McLaren's 52, so they've extended their Constructors' Championship lead by 4 points, with Williams still holding on in 3rd place.
When Mika Häkkinen watches a replay of this race, he's going to be disappointed and looking the other way when he sees how Michael Schumacher overtook him earlier in the race. I think he's going to be very disappointed with himself that he yielded, he gave Michael so much space, and that was a critical point there, because then it allowed Michael to get off and build a lead, and Mika really will not enjoy that moment on the video.
Well, just a statistical point, but it is of some real significance in winning this World Championship race and getting 10 World Championship points. Michael Schumacher has moved up ahead of the late great Ayrton Senna to the 2nd highest World Championship points scorer of all time. He now has 618 points and has been bested so far only by 4 times world champion Alain Prost, who is here to see his Prost team driver, the only one, Jean Alesi, finish in 9th position, with Nick Heidfeld not being allowed to start the race due to his car being underweight at the end of qualifying. So, the results of the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring: a Ferrari triumph. Michael Schumacher wins from the 2 McLarens of Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard, and his teammate Rubens Barrichello 4th. Giancarlo Fisichella for Benetton has got 2 World Championship points for 5th place. De La Rosa, a magnificent single point, their first this year for Arrows. Pedro Diniz in 7th place for Sauber. Gaston Mazzacane, the Argentine driver, in 8th position for Minardi, ahead of Jean Alesi. Jenson Button is going to be classified 10th, although he's 5 laps down. Johnny Herbert will be classified 11th after his retirement, and Alexander Wurz 12th. And then all the rest have retired, particularly, notably, and very sadly, for what's turning out not to be a good season for them, the 2 Jordans of Jarno Trulli and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Jordan were 3rd in the Constructors' Championship last year. They're down in 5th position this year, and they're some 53 points behind Ferrari. Not at all a happy Germany for Eddie Jordan and his team. Well, they are the photographers crowding out onto the circuit now, waiting to see the 3 top men, Schumacher, Häkkinen and Coulthard. And let us remember that David Coulthard, for the 2nd race in succession, has been carrying a very unpleasant and painful injury. That is to say, 3 cracked ribs. You need to be very, very fit, and as well as being gigantically determined to be a Grand Prix driver, and he's certainly every bit of that.
21 starters, 9 finishers, and to add insult to injury, they're now going to stand on the podium and get even more wet, but I don't think they'll mind too much. I think Schumi's going to be the happiest man up there. Häkkinen, he's going to be disappointed to lose more ground to Michael Schumacher, and that's Mrs. Michael Schumacher we're looking at now. Coulthard, I think, will be amazingly relieved and surprised to end up in 3rd place in this Grand Prix.
Corinna Schumacher, there are 2 little Schumachers at home in Switzerland, where the gigantically wealthy Michael Schumacher lives for all sorts of reasons, not the least of which, I suspect, is that it helps him from a taxation point of view. Nothing wrong with that. Michael Schumacher then in the background, in a slow motion, with the fist up, that distinctive and familiar sign that we have seen in the past, adds yet another victory to his tally. That's his 39th Grand Prix win. He's been on the podium 76 times in his 132 Grand Prix. He's been on the podium for well over half the races in which he has competed. 1 race for Jordan, then for Benetton, where he was a double world champion, and now for Ferrari. Is he going to be this year's world champion? He could be. Michael Schumacher, the distinctive Schumacher leap, looking as ever delighted. And in Germany, the German national anthem. A German driver won the race, an Italian car won the race. Ferrari, Italy. And understandably delighted, Michael Schumacher from Germany wins the European Grand Prix in Germany and will receive his trophy appropriately from the Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, Gerhard Schröder.
And Mr. Romano Prodi, which is interesting. And obviously a bit of a healing of the ways between Formula One and the European Commission. But Michael Schumacher, I think, more delighted on the podium than I've ever seen him before.
With very good reason too, because he feels that this is his year again after working so hard for Ferrari since 1996, and that's Michael Schumacher's engineer rightly receiving the Constructors' Trophy. David Coulthard looking as though he's in a bit. Mika Häkkinen lifting his trophy, and David Coulthard looking a bit wan, and well, understandably, as he contains his chest. Must be very painful indeed. So, a great European Grand Prix. David Coulthard rightly kept well away from the champagne festivities in the past race or two, but he's getting in there this year, and that is good to see. So, Ferrari win, Schumacher win, but McLaren are still there.
Thanks, Murray. Thanks to Martin Brundle as well. Well, we told you so. What a compelling race. 4 out of 6 now for Michael Schumacher. His army, over 100,000 of them, will leave the Nürburgring. Very cold, absolutely soaking, but glowing inside. We will be right back. You're back with us at the Nürburgring, where Michael Schumacher has won the European Grand Prix for the 3rd time, delighting the old lady. And the two watching back at home, Tony Jardine, I would think as well, the 2 little ones that Murray was talking about.
Well, it's the brilliance of the guy. You know, the best racing drivers in the world. We've just watched them put on a superb driving display. Michael Schumacher, the Regenmeister, he proves it yet again. Can't emphasize how difficult the conditions have been here today. That is a skating rink, that is an ice rink out there. Just look how wet and slippery and dank and miserable it is. And you know, you're looking at slow-mo pictures now. Mika Häkkinen, he's not the best in the rain. Everyone knows Michael Schumacher is, but this guy did a brilliant job today as well. He started with heavier fuel, he hung on in there, and he's got 2nd place for all his efforts. And it really is Ferrari's day, Schumacher's day. We'll have to ask questions about Barrichello and what happened to him later on.
OK, let's go straight to the press conference.
Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard. Michael, many congratulations on a great victory. Thank you. We could see the rain on TV, but what was it like to drive in such atrocious conditions out there?
I mean, the only critical circumstance was when it started to rain and you were out on slicks. And obviously none of us front riders wanted to go into the pits and take the chance to pick up rain tires and find out you go slower. As it was not a clear rain yet, we knew it would come, but whether it was already this one or whether it would have stopped and start later on again, nobody knew. So it was difficult. But obviously some drivers took on rain tires, and as soon as we saw they go faster, we went straight in.
Was there any problem with aquaplaning?
There was a few times, yes, because especially with my last set. I did more than 30 laps, and I was pretty knackered at the end, and it was pretty difficult on certain parts, especially on the straight, but not as bad as what we have experienced in probably Silverstone. I think we have experienced very bad aquaplaning. Here it wasn't as bad.
And your first pit stop was very slow. Did you have a problem, or was that a change of strategy?
I don't know honestly what happened. I need to analyze. You guys, you have the opportunity to see everything from outside and see the times. I sit there and I don't even count. I just wait until the ready is there and I go. So I have no idea.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Mika, was that the best start of your career?
I'm sorry?
Was that the best start of your career? Third to first, boom, straight in?
No, not really. But one of the best, yes. I enjoyed the podcast start, yes.
You just, as the lights went out, you hit the clutch perfect?
Yeah, I knew that's the only chance, you know, what I have to do. And it's a great possibility to make a very good start, and you can immediately improve your position in a race. And I was happy to do that, because the disappointment what I had yesterday in qualifying was basically fixed.
You had a lot of back markers towards the end of the race. Wirtz, Herbert, Button. If you hadn't had that problem, do you think you could have caught Michael by the end?
I certainly would have get very close. I mean, I naturally understand that Michael could have pushed much more also. He could have gone maybe faster. But I would have gotten very, very close. Overtaking, I don't know. But obviously there is improvements what we could do in terms of back markers and with the blue flags. And today that situation, that problem wasn't helping me too much today.
Okay, thank you, Mika. David, you lost 2 places at the start and then seemed to struggle with your car throughout. What was the problem?
I really don't know at the moment, but Wright obviously missed the lights. I think my getaway itself wasn't too bad, but I was just slow to react. And straight away I was struggling with the rear of the car, which became even more difficult when it was in the damp conditions. And then of course once it went full wet, so it was definitely one of my most difficult races. So I guess in those circumstances, fortunate to get third.
What sort of setup did you have on the car? Was it more towards dry?
It was, yeah, a dry setup, but with the availability to make changes for the wet, you know, in the wing level when we came in for our stop. But I think whatever the problem I was having, it's a mechanical one, not an aerodynamic one.
Well, I reckon those broken ribs are hurting him as well. We will be right back to complete our coverage of the European Grand Prix. And you're back with us at the Nürburgring. Tony, we've spoken about Michael Schumacher. A word about David Coulthard. He's held his hand up for a poor start, but surely he drove a lot of this race in pain.
Well, I think so. I mean, I broke 3 ribs playing rugby and I still all fused together, and then tried to drive a rally car about 5 weeks later, and it's tremendously painful. It takes a long, long time to recover. This guy, Coulthard, trying to hold off Rubens Barrichello for a podium place here, having to work overtime. He said then in the conference, the rear end getting away from him, one of his hardest races. Look at the pressure that he's literally soaking up, never mind the rain that's floating around in the cockpit there as well. We all thought that he was going to lose that place. That is a very, very brave effort and fantastic driving from both of them, in fact, but David Coulthard third.
Absolutely. Let's have a word, shall we, with Rubens Barrichello, lapped, of course, by his teammate Michael Schumacher. Here he is with James.
Painful then, after all that, to have seen Michael come through to lap you. You must have thought, why me?
Yeah, because we had the same pace. We had I had a problem on downshift, but apart from that, I mean, he was behind me, and I reckon he was doing the same lap times. I had to let him by because of the blue flags, which is quite right, and the team ordered me to let him by. After that, I was behind him and I couldn't see anything, so I lost time again. So it was a shame today, but you know, we have what we deserve, and I think my time will come.
Good old day for Ferrari. There wasn't it not so good again for Jaguar. Irvine taken out, and then Herbert, well, coming off second best against Alexander Wirtz, it seemed to me.
Yeah, Herbert winning here last year when he was cloud watching, but this gaggle of cars behind them, up behind them is coming David Coulthard, Rubens Barrichello, Häkkinen's closing in. They've already let Schumacher through, but Wirtz diving on the inside there when he shouldn't really have done that, in my opinion. And his career is under the microscope. Herbert, perhaps his last year, he admitted this, maybe he said, I need to get some really good results. And unfortunately, that being ruined for him today as the pair of them gyrate off. We thought Herbert might have got out of jail there and got it going again, but he didn't. He stopped and Wirtz was out on the spot.
Right, let's have a look at the standings, how it all shakes down after the European Grand Prix race. 6 Schumacher is now opened up that gap again to 18 points. David Coulthard 4 points adrift of Mika Häkkinen, and then Barrichello. Ralf Schumacher didn't score today, and Fisichella on 10 points. And Ferrari 10 points clear of McLaren at the top. Big gap then to Williams and Benetton. And Jordan, who had such a poor day today, just ahead of BAR Honda. Right then, next Wednesday night on this channel, it is the climax of a season's endeavour in the UEFA Champions League.
These goals shattered the European dream for Bayern Munich and Barcelona.
That's it! Next stop, Paris!
The Champions League glory continues, a Spanish fiesta in Paris. The first final between two clubs from the same country. Real Madrid and Valencia fight it out to be Europe's #1. The final of the UEFA Champions League, Wednesday 7:30 on ITV. Are you ready for a hot Parisian night?
Keep an eye out for the highlights tonight, just before midnight. And that programme, as always, repeated ITV2, 7 o'clock tomorrow night.
Michael, you seem very popular here. Did you do something special today, do you think?
Oh, it looks like, yeah. I mean, I'm honestly not surprised I'm popular here.
It was an incredible pass you put on Häkkinen. Tell us about it.
Hey, it was nice. I don't have very often the opportunity. I was a little bit concerned because I had the harder tire, that in this condition, which was very slippery, I would lose ground, but actually I made up ground.
Seemed to give you an awful lot of pleasure, this win today. Tell us about it.
Yeah, certainly did.
Well, it started raining a little bit more in the back corners, and it gave the opportunity to Michael to close up. And I feel that way he probably had a little bit better car in the rain than I had.
Tell me about the last few laps, your battle with Barrichello.
You know, I wasn't battling with Rubens because I was having to concentrate so hard to keep my car on the circuit, that because it was very nervous in the rear, and it would either be below the car or, you know, probably in the gravel. So I just was really concentrating to keep my car on the track, and if someone was quicker, they were going to overtake me. There was very little I could do to defend that. So I knew he was catching me, and obviously I saw him behind me at the end, but I just had to concentrate on my car.
At the end of the race, there was no visibility at all, and I tell you, it was somebody up there that was holding me on the track, because I was trying everything I could to overtake David. And unfortunately, I had no visibility, but I had a better car, I had you know, better everything to overtake, but unfortunately I didn't have the visibility.
Well done, Pedro, good day for the team.
I'm very pleased, very happy for the Orange Arrows team. I think we deserved it. The team has worked so hard during the winter, and a lot of non-finishes at the beginning with, but now it's good for the guys. They've done a great job.
If I was in clear air, I think I possibly could have done some good times. The car felt very good, and when I did have some clear air, I was able to catch people. But when you're 100 metres behind them, it's so difficult with the spray. Something I've got to get used to, and I've learned quite a lot in this race.
I don't think I would have finished in the points anyway. I think I would have stayed 7th, and that's always the worst place to be. So in some ways, not finishing is just as bad as 7th anyway. So but it's frustrating. It was did a good choice of tyres, but as I said before, I needed 2 of those rainstorms to help me out.
There we are then. It's an 18-point lead now for Michael Schumacher. Häkkinen's 4 points ahead of teammate Coulthard. Barrichello moving up to 16. The younger Schumacher unchanged. A couple of points, though, taking Fisichella into double figures. And in the constructors, Ferrari's leads up to 10 points. No improvement for Williams or Jordan. And their miserable day is compounded by being overtaken by Benetton. Right, let's have a word with Tony Jardine. First of all, pay tribute to the rain master, Michael Schumacher, once again.
I'd put it on a level with some of the great drives by the greats like Ayrton Senna. You know, when he won his first race in Portugal in '84, I'd put it on a par with some of Schumacher's great drives, like at Monte Carlo in '97. You remember standing on that boat and getting soaked and watching him just master the conditions. And here you've had this rain, the mist, the gloom, and he's brought joy to 120,000 spectators, never mind the Ferrari fans around the world.
And he obviously felt it was a very significant day for him, judging by the way he celebrated on that podium, Tony.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you know, even an hour or so after the race, he was out there waving to his fans and the klaxons have been going and so on. And just a tremendous performance. It means so much to him because he missed both German races last year due to breaking his leg at Silverstone.
He's called it one of the best days of his life. Not so David Coulthard, though. Left pretty dramatically at the start after kicking off on pole as well.
Yeah, I mean, the start was tremendous, really, but it was 2 years since he'd had pole. Just look at the start, the rocket ship from Mika Häkkinen. He got the revs just right, the timing just right. He shocked both Michael Schumacher and David Coulthard, but Schumacher regains his confidence there to get into second place, and somehow Coulthard gets back into third. That was truly, he got punted off there by Fisichella. He got a rude bang at the rear of his car. That put him out. Look at it again. Incredible traction. Now the temperatures are so low, which is why some of the drivers, i.e. the McLaren guys, went on the super soft tyres to try and get some grip. And Häkkinen got grip off that line.
We're all wondering when the Jaguar are going to get their first point, aren't we? And Eddie Irvine got tangled up with Ralf Schumacher and Jos Verstappen, and that was him done for.
Well, he'd been dicing with Verstappen. He'd been ahead of him, and he was having another go for 6th place here. And there was a touch there with Verstappen. And as he gyrated, poor Ralf Schumacher was behind him, had nowhere to go, hit the back of the Jaguar, and you see it again. But the wing has come off, not just Ralf Schumacher's car, but Eddie Irvine's Jaguar. He said the rear end was light anyway. Off he goes, out he goes as well. And that was unfortunate, but it showed you how treacherous the conditions were.
There was a stop for Mika Häkkinen, lap 44, I think it was, and then we realised that, well, he was never going to catch Michael Schumacher.
But again, it could have paid off because McLaren had a good strategy. They got the cars heavier with fuel for that first run. He'd stayed out longer. He'd gone into the lead, but he needed to build up more time than he got before that pit stop. Schumacher, you saw going past there again, back into the lead.
Johnny Herbert running his 150th Grand Prix. Again, he seemed to be in line for a point, possibly for Jaguar, and then along came the big Austrian. Wears different coloured boots, Alexander Wurz,
yeah.
Put the boot in.
Well, and there it is, and these are two men that are under the microscope to try and hold their positions if they can for next year. Here you see it again. I think the door was wide open, but there's only a certain line. You're going wide around there. Johnny Herbert looking for grip. He won here last year by watching the clouds, but Wurz just going where he shouldn't have gone.
This was an absolutely compelling Grand Prix, wasn't it, Tony? Excitement right through to the end with David Coulthard in pain, but holding off Rubens Barrichello.
Yeah, we've talked about it. You know, those of us that have broken ribs, it takes a long time for them to heal. He had a very light rear end of the car, but he was defending his position. He knew he had to hang on here for third place on that podium. In the meantime, Barrichello's thinking, I've got to get up on that podium because otherwise Ferrari are going to give me a lot of stick, but he didn't make it.
You're not going to tell any of the 100,000 plus Germans here that this is not going to be Michael Schumacher's year, are you?
No, I daren't, but it is not over yet. I mean, you know, there is still a long way to go. 18 points now between Häkkinen and Michael Schumacher, but things happen in Formula 1. We've seen it year after year after year. We've got to wait and see what happens at Monte Carlo next.
Tony, thanks very much indeed. And here's your complete European Grand Prix rundown. Michael Schumacher, an ecstatic winner, carrying, by the way, a lucky hairbrush given to him by his young daughter. Häkkinen, a subdued runner-up. Coulthard third, driving through the pain barrier and struggling for balance. Still holding off Barrichello. Fisichella, a scorer for Benetton. High praise for the Spaniard De La Rosa, 6 for Arrows. 2 laps adrift. Deniz, Mazzacani and Alesi. Button classified 10th, 5 laps behind. Herbert and Wurz still classified 11th and 12th after that crash. Zonta spun off. Genet's electrics failed, as did Villeneuve's engine. Verstappen, Ralf Schumacher and Irvine all involved in that accident. Salo, another spinner. And the unlucky Jordans, Frenson's engine failing, Trulli pushed off in the first lap. Heidfeld, you'll remember, ruled out by that underweight Prost. Next, one of the great Grand Prix weekends of the year, the Monaco Grand Prix. Qualifying live on the Saturday at 11:30 in the morning. Our build-up to the race starting 12:15 on the Sunday. Highlights around about the same time, 11:45. Monaco, of course, the base for many of the Grand Prix drivers. There is no place like home. If you don't believe me, ask Michael Schumacher. Good night.
Drive by Michael Schumacher. Whoa!
Germany.
F1 on ITV in association with Texaco.
If you would like to know more about Formula One, the website address sponsored by Digital Island is www.itv-f1.com.